A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web stream dinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop up the cork, have a glass of wine, first they'll say I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
Well, hello. Fancy meeting you guys here.
Whoa. Howdy.
Who would have thought it? Well, here it is. Welcome, everyone, to Open Bar number 113. Here we are. Wow, lucky 13. That should be a good one, hopefully.
Hey.
How are you this evening, MauLer? How are you feeling?
Oh, just wonderful. We've got a whole buffet of options today. It's like, watch something that you kind of are interested to see made by people who can't make it whatsoever, or watch something you're not interested to see by people who can't make it whatsoever. That's just plentiful.
I mean, a couple of days ago, we did get something that was good made by people.
Yeah.
Well, that was something I didn't want to see made by people who actually really knew what they were doing. So that was a weird experience.
We just missed the final option, something we want to see made really well. So.
Yeah. One day we'll get them.
Give it time.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to everyone. And as has become the custom, we're going to tell you a little bit about the year of our Lord 2013 in this case. So, big events that happened in that year. November actually saw the launch of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 in the same month, and they went head to head. Pretty much right off the bat. So, an interesting month for technology. Also, in tragic news, it was also the year that the world faced a global wine shortage. Apparently, it was the deepest shortfall in 40 years. It was caused by a combination of vines being deliberately pulled up to reduce production and poor weather. So, I mean, that was bad times indeed. I mean, I don't remember that year very well, but I must have found sources of wine to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of movies, the top 5 movies of the year in terms of box office gross: Frozen, the biggie, with 1.2 billion. The movie that, women still obsess over to this day for some reason. I never got it. I feel like it was a whole movie built around that one song.
Yeah, I remember watching it thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe you had to be a teenage girl or something to appreciate it
maybe,
at the time.
Yeah.
Don't really know. And on the plus side, though, it did inspire Leslie Headland to make The Acolyte.
Aww.
So we've got...
#renew.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to get there. I believe in it. They've still got, 50, 60,000 signatures to go to reach their target, but I think they can do it.
I'm so excited to see the future. Yes.
Yeah. We also got Iron Man 3 in second place. That was 1.21 billion, so just shy of Frozen's total, actually. Not the best of the Iron Man movies, but, absolute gold compared to what we got nowadays.
I suppose so, yeah.
Despicable Me 2 came in at third place. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug came in at fourth. So regret that trilogy. And in fifth place was The Hunger Games Catching Fire. I honestly feel like when we do these summaries of the years, there seems to be 25 different Hunger Games movies. They just always crop up.
Yeah.
It's like the Harry Potter ones. They seemed like they would never end. But
what was the last one called? Not the new one, the last of the Jennifer Lawrence ones.
I don't know. Was it Catching Fire? Because it was a two-parter, wasn't it? Am I thinking of Twilight? I don't fucking know. They all blended together into a fucking massive YA garbage. Hold on. Hunger Games movies. What was the last one?
Mockingjay?
God, when I look at the number of them. Yeah, so... Yeah, Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2.
Ah. Well, there you go. Answer to that question.
Kept going. And yeah, we're going to get another one in 2026. The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping.
Oh.
They're just throwing random words together there, like, I don't know, teapot on the ruptured ferret.
I mean, sounds good.
Yeah, let's just go with that. Anyhow, we've babbled on long enough. I think it's about time we assemble our panel so we can do some proper drinking and commiserate what we've experienced today. So, should we bring them in?
Yes.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to Disparu, the Outcasts Creative, and Snarky Jay. Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey.
You say
I wish
commiserations, but I had a lot of fun talking about the most fun talking about Rings of Power today. And I don't know whether it's like Wheel of Time, like I just broke and I no longer care about it anymore. But all of the euphemisms, the shipping of literally everybody in the entire show, I've just kind of lost it. And when the orc starts banging on his drum for absolutely no reason whatsoever, by that point I was gone with the episode.
I think truly my favorite moment was when the orc says to Adar, "Father, you told us that you loved us."
Oh my god. No, yeah, I've already said to a friend, I think it might be the worst episode for me, but possibly the most entertaining.
It reached for the stars, and face planted straight into the ground. So,
My
my
favourite moments have been when the orcs they dam the river, forgetting that the water's just going to go round the side and destroy all of the forest.
Look, they forgot how rivers work. Okay, it happens.
That's not how water works.
I would love to speak to the writers on this episode.
My favorite was how they spelled it out. Like
just
at the start, there's all the rings, and he goes 9, just so you can count.
Yeah.
And then we see them damming the river. They're damming the river.
So imagine this, Snarky Jay. Like we'll talk about the penguin just in a second. I'll just explain this one little bit to you. Imagine that you're besieging a city, right? And you've got to cross a river to get to it. So that's a big problem. River's a difficult thing to get an army across. What do? Do you go across the bridge, or do you have boats or something that'll get you across? Nah, these guys have got a better idea. You bombard a mountain nearby, which causes the entire thing to collapse into the river, which then makes a dam, which stops the water flow. So then you can just roll on across. No.
Were they on drugs when they wrote that, or because if they were, I'd like some, honestly.
Whoever came up with it thought it was a great idea, and nobody challenged them.
There was even the suggestion at one point by Sauron that they should lead the army out and ride across the river to attack the orcs on the other side. It's like, what's the point of fortifications and walls if you're just going to leave them behind?
And rivers are made of a bed of silt that's about 10 feet. And if you put
you're just going to sink into the mud.
Of armor, they'd just sink straight away. It's not like the riverbed dries suddenly when the water's gone in 2 minutes, And this all happens in the same day.
Before we truly get into this, because I know, Snarky, you haven't seen the latest episode of Rings of Power. So how about we first of all talk about something lighter, something a bit better? Because we've all seen the Penguin.
I haven't.
Over the past few days. Oh, right, most of us have seen the Penguin.
I've seen everything else.
Yeah. But it turned out surprisingly good. I must admit, it was a show that I had absolutely zero interest in watching. I knew nothing about it. I had seen none of the marketing for it. It just felt like something that was completely pointless, and it was going to be another Gotham Knights or another Pennyworth or any one of the 200 other spin-off Batman shows that they've created over the years. But people seemed to like it, and so I gave it a go, sat down and watched the first episode. And I have to admit, I was genuinely quite impressed with it. I thought it was a great performance by Colin Farrell. I think it was a pretty well-structured, well-written, pretty decent crime drama that didn't get bogged down in superhero stuff at all. And if you're going to do a show like this, I think this is probably the way to go about it. I think they did a really good job. Yeah, don't know how you guys felt.
Well, I think it was his role is some of the best, best central performance in a show I've ever seen. I completely forget that I'm watching Colin Farrell. I actually found myself at one point going, "Sorry, who's playing this role again?" Looking on Google, and that's no, of course it's Farrell. You just, it's so immersive, his performance, and of course plaudits to the makeup team as well, who've done a fantastic job. And it doesn't look like a guy in heavy makeup; it just looks like a guy with a deformed face. So you really forget about Farrell when you're watching the show, and that's what you want. You want that. You want to be invested in the world. And this is basically Scarface, but with the Penguin. And I'm completely okay with that. If that's the show, if that's what the show's going to be, him rising up through the mob, offing people on the quiet, I'm completely down with that. As soon as they put someone with a cape in it, I'm going to be, really? Do we have to have Batman in?
So that's why I haven't watched it, because I'm like, what's the point of Gotham without all the Gotham stuff?
I think you probably have to see it on its own merits as just like look at it more as like a standard crime drama, I suppose, that might have some allusions to the superhero genre, but for the most part, it's its own thing. I think it keeps the aesthetic of Gotham pretty much intact. Like what you saw in the Batman is essentially what you see here as well, maybe just broadened out a little bit. It is just a stand-in for New York. You know, you've got like Brooklyn and stuff and all the different boroughs that, you know, sometimes are referenced, but just a bit more stylized and a bit more gritty and raw, like you would expect. But
yeah,
honestly, I was so.
Sorry, go.
Sorry.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say I was genuinely shocked at how good it was, because it's kind of like I get that it's an unpopular opinion, but I loved the Batman 2022. But I also feel like Matt Reeves and everybody involved with this show insisting on grounding it so much is driving me nuts. Like, if he doesn't end up with an umbrella that shoots, what is the point of making a show about the Penguin? So I feel like perpetually grounding it and being afraid to make it a superhero thing, and like, yeah, we don't want to bring in Batman. Okay, well, this guy doesn't exist without Batman. But I will say that I love the direction it's taking already. After being exposed to Agatha All Along and the Acolyte and all this other bullshit, it feels like I finally got some good food. And Kristen Milioti is such proof that if you write a good script for a woman in a TV show, people are not going to lose their minds, because she was scary, she was nuts, she was intimidating, and they didn't have to like put that on a t-shirt and have Kathleen Kennedy wear it out of the house. Like, it was just, I had like a moment about it. I thought it was so good.
no, I liked her performance, and she genuinely came across as someone who could do fucking anything at any moment. Like the scene where she's having dinner with the Penguin, you know, and like she's like shoveling the food into her mouth, just like being weird as fuck. And I just felt like at any moment she could just like draw a gun and start shooting people in the restaurant. She's that kind of character.
Very good at having crazy eyes.
Yeah.
But I think
Mommy
like, and her
as hell.
powers not so much about her ability to bust heads physically. It's like the fact that she's the head of a really powerful crime family, and she can essentially, if she wants someone dead, she can make it happen quite easily. That's what makes her intimidating, and she plays it really well. I mean, credit to her.
Yeah, we've talked about this coming up, and the thing it's going to have to fight is the fact that it's deciding not to get involved with Batman at all, and to make a whole TV show of this budget with one villainous character from the movie. It's just like, okay, you're going to have to be really good to be able to survive the lack of interest people are going to have at the premise. But I think it might just do that. If it can maintain / get better, I think word of mouth might spread this around, as well as just people recommending once it's finished off to check it out as a full thing. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about, because I think instead of allowing him to be called Oswald Cobblepot, they're calling him Oz Cobb, which is
Oswald,
I think
it's Oswald Cobb. Yeah, like they changed his surname because Cobblepot's a bit fucking stupid sounding.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
I would want to commit to shit like that sometimes, even with how grounded it all is. I get it. Like, I've seen the conversations they're having about how like Batman has to be transferred. They had to like change Riddler, you know, because his name is Edward Nygma, right, in the comics, and they had to change that in the movie as well. It's like some of it, I guess I understand, but some of it, like, you know, we can't have him having umbrellas that shoot little things. It's just like, no, like, was there any way we could get that?
You can't have the Riddler
Like,
wearing,
they bring
like, you
in
know, a
Mr.
question mark
Freeze.
bait suit or whatever.
Yeah, you kind of Jim Carrey style with Schumacher and everything. And yeah, this is very much a product of that sort of idea. They don't want to break that level of immersion, and I guess we'll see how it works out. But yeah, it's got a bit of an uphill battle to fight to get an audience that might be like, "Where's my Batman?" Which I'm kind of with Gary on this to an extent of just like, why the fuck are you guys so afraid of using Batman in like these shows? It's insane.
Well,
this is
I
like
mean,
a
I wonder
17
Well, I do wonder if they're going to use this show to then set up another movie where the Penguin is now the crime lord of Gotham, and that's when he's going to be much more powerful, and that's when he's going to take on Batman in a movie.
I think so.
The issue is you can't become the crime lord of Gotham without meeting people like Batman or the other villains that Batman fights. These are all characters in the same city. And I keep coming back to, and maybe when I watch it, I'll change my mind, but I keep coming back to, if it's got nothing to do with kind of the Gotham verse and all the characters in it, why not just make it your own IP? Are you just using that as a brand to get people in? Is that?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, 100%.
Well,
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, we've seen
I
this
don't like
before.
that,
They've
though.
done it
Because if we
before.
said like,
To
oh
me,
yeah,
it's
we're
like
just
taking up
we're, well, if you were to say like essentially we're just going to make like a Sopranos knockoff, who's going to want that? Like this is tied into the IP. It's trying to capitalize on the audience that came with the movie, obviously, but kind of doing its own thing. I mean, I don't blame it for doing that. I totally get your criticism of like, okay, if you're not even going to really acknowledge the film, then what's the point? I suppose it's too early to tell as well. When we're only one episode in, there might be a lot of references to Batman. We don't know.
To an extent, is how it feels with a lot of shows that don't claim to be doing that. Like, take, for example, the Halo show. That was just some insane person's set of ideas of what they wanted to do, and they used Halo as an IP to try and sell it. And it's like, yeah, well, it was so awful, no one's fucking interested, that sort of thing. But the Penguin, it's good enough, certainly good enough, that people are going to be interested in this as a show, whether or not they adhere to Gotham lore, so to speak, and every bit of iconography one would expect. But they know, I get the impression they're probably aware of how powerful a lot of that is, and they probably will reference Batman, I'd have to imagine. And like from judging from the first episode, he might not. They can move around why he wouldn't necessarily bump into directly with Batman until maybe they tease it at the end of the season or something like that. And if the show is really successful, I could totally imagine them being able to draw in more support for maybe bringing in Robert Pattinson or something like that in a season 2.
It does,
Depends.
yeah. It is funny though when you mention characters like Mr. Freeze and stuff. Like trying to imagine them existing in the world of the Penguin.
It's just a guy with an ice cream truck and a problematic attitude.
Or like every person he murders, he sticks them in like a chest freezer. Or
yes,
something
that would
like
be
that.
it. That's how he would deal
is
with
the guy
people.
from Ghost.
And you would have like a dark blue suit, as opposed to any kind of blue skin or blue, like references all icy stuff. It's like, yeah, that's how they're always going to do stuff like this. And to be honest with you, there's so many Batman villains that they're going to have to avoid because they're just, in and of themselves, way too goofy for this kind of grounded approach. But
yeah,
I wanted to ask
ways,
you guys what you thought of the kid. Sorry, MauLer, I thought you were done there, but what you thought of the kid
Vincent.
in the show. Yeah, because for me, at the beginning, I wasn't sure about him, and I was thinking, oh, this feels like the weak link. But when they had that scene where the Penguin was going to murder him and then he didn't, I thought, okay, this is kind of getting interesting now. It was pushing the believability of the universe a little bit, but I'll see where I'm a bit. The jury's out on him for me at the minute. We'll see.
I honestly, I had a moment, because this is the kind of show it is, where I almost thought like, oh, he's going to give this big impassioned speech, and you think that the Penguin's going to take him under his wing, and he's going to become like his protege, and then he will just straight up shoot him when his back's turned, like at the last moment. And obviously they didn't go that route, but he seemed almost like that kind of character, and I like that unpredictable element that this show seems to have, where you kind of feel like he could be capable of doing something like that. But yeah, like the kid's fine so far. Happen. He's obviously got a long way to go in terms of character development, and he's just green at the moment. But I think the only thing that stuck in my mind was right at the end where Penguin's getting interrogated and like right on the verge of being executed. And wow, he timed that perfectly. The car crashing into the fountain with the dead body inside. It's like, damn, it's like he was watching the entire thing that he couldn't possibly have been. So I don't quite know how he pulled that off, but okay.
I actually kind of like how he stumbles across the kid and how they start to rely on some stuff. But yeah, I think it was a little bit of a thing for me to have to buy that when they were in where they are, and Penguin has to make a decision. I was like, obviously Penguin would make the decision that he doesn't, and I was like, all right, I think the rest of the show is going to justify that better when we get more history on the Penguin, because of there's certain things the kid says, and I think it's supposed to be the Penguin sees himself in the kid trying to, and I think they're going to try and give more flesh to that as we go along. But yes, as to what Drigger said, that kid is the greatest sudden henchman you could ever have picked up ever.
He's kind of like Penguin's Robin right now. I mean, even like when Batman finds Jason Todd, he's trying to take the rims off the Batmobile in most of the origin stories. So I kind of thought like that was so, I don't know if that was supposed to be as cheeky as it was, but I thought it was so cute. I mean, I don't know that cute is the word I would use, but I just thought it was funny.
I think the show does a great job, like particularly in the space of one episode, to really humanize the Penguin to the point where you root for him a little bit. And I guess you're kind of meant to be conflicted on it because he is ultimately a crime lord, who's not above killing people and probably innocent people at that. But you get that little conversation that he has right at the beginning with Carmine's son, talking about the former mob boss that he once knew, who knew everyone's name, and he tried to help people out. When he passed away, he had a parade, and he looks so nostalgic about it and so inspired. Like, you get that that's what he wants for himself. Like, he wants to be a force for good. Yeah, he's going to work outside the law, but like, he ultimately wants to be remembered for having been a good man and having helped his people around him, and to get that parade for himself. And then you see later on, like, the things that he's struggling with, like whether it's his domineering mother who kind of always wants him to be a tough guy, or he's got this fucking deformed foot that, like, he can't walk properly, and all that stuff. Like, just, you kind of see that this is very much a damaged man who has grown up in a pretty tough world, and he's been forced to be this guy now, in order to survive. But he kind of hopes for something a little bit more. He hopes for something better for himself, which I think makes for an interesting combination for a villain like this.
Yeah, they've given him a lot of depth, even in episode 1. And I thought, yeah, this, I'm finding watching this guy interesting. It's not just the performance, it's the writing. And good writing is, we're really missing that. Don't get me started with Rings of Power, but here I felt the people that were steering this ship, they feel like they've got a cohesive vision for this show. At least so far, so good. I let's wait and see, but it feels like somebody sat down and said, this is gonna be. It's going to be this kind of show. This is what we're going to do with the main character. And it just feels like it's being led by somebody, and that, great movies and shows always are not by a committee. This doesn't feel like a show that was made by committee to me, which is a good thing.
It feels almost like, because it's kind of obscure, they were just given a bit more leeway to do it the way they wanted to do it. And
good.
Damn, man, it's just nice to watch a show that feels like it was written by adults.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing that now. It's like,
every word of dialogue feels like it has purpose, and then you go and you watch something like Agatha All Along, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot what year it was. Like, the Penguin genuinely feels like an outlier in TV right now. I mean, I was watching it sitting down, like, dreading it, and everything in it felt so on purpose. And of course, people are going to draw comparisons to The Sopranos and all that stuff, and say it's a mobster cliche and stuff. But I think we do have to appreciate the fact that one episode was all it took for them to establish everybody's motivations, and nobody is a caricature. Like, the Penguin, Oz feels kind of like a larger than life character, but you listen to the fact, like, that conversation on the way to speak with the Falcone family, when he says, they call me here, usually it's an ego trip. I make myself small, they feel better about themselves. Like, this isn't some guy that they're trying to sell you like he's the guy. Like, he wants to be the guy, but he knows that he's got to be smart about this. And that's something we don't see with characters anymore, is characters that have to be smart about things. Usually things just happen because a committee said they had to happen. This feels like you're actually on a trip with them.
Yeah. No, I liked it.
Yeah, I'm already invested in the show, so for that to happen on episode 1 is pretty rare these days. So bring it on.
And yes, if like the makeup were torn off him in a scene and you actually saw Colin Farrell, I would actually be like, what the fuck? Completely forgetting that that's who's playing this character,
I mean, it's got to be hell for him.
It's so impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think actually his VFX and stuff, like the makeup that they've put on him, actually looks better than it did in the movie. It looks more natural now.
The big thing about it is that all of it moves, so it doesn't come across as like a mask or anything. It looks like a real guy.
Yeah, and it is just
the fact that they got him nude too, like the bodysuit. I was like, oh my god, this guy really looks like I might see him at the community pool later. It's so legit, it's crazy.
It's like they've made his shoulders and his back and stuff is all hairy. It's like, oh god, man was not blessed in life. But yeah, like I've seen the behind the scenes stuff about like the Farrell just sitting down in the makeup chair so they can apply all this, and it does take hours. And it'd be tough enough in the movie to get this done, just for the number of scenes that he was in, but like week after week for all these different episodes, like that has got to be a lot.
His call time on set was 3 a.m.
Right.
To be ready to 3 a.m. to be ready to shoot. I think between 9 or 10. And what they'll do is they shoot everybody else's shots in the scene that he's in first, get them out of the way while he's still having his makeup done, so that they can get the most mileage out of the day.
That is brutal.
But 3-4 a.m. call times for makeup jobs like that are pretty common. Just ask Jason Fleming, because he does them all. That's why he gets those jobs, because he doesn't mind it. He's quite happy to sit in the makeup chair, and get.
And I guess you can't even do anything, I suppose, while it's going on. You have to just sit there motionless while they work. And for hours at a time, that has got to be boring as fuck.
Can't even put on music in your ears if you're getting the, if it's all part of you. Can't even do that, You do get to know
let you play music.
Yeah, they play it. You get to know the makeup artist pretty well normally.
Yeah, I kind of imagine after like the first week, you've probably run out of things to say to them, and you'd just be like, "Okay, we're both know we're here. Just get on with it."
You'd be surprised how many actors end up marrying makeup artists. It's a pretty high number.
Yeah,
that's a long time to talk. When you've got those early call times, you get to know each other pretty well. So
I should have been a makeup artist. I wouldn't have to do this for a living.
You'd have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day.
For Hugh Jackman, I'll do it. I don't care.
I have to apply like oil to his abs. Shit, what a job.
Snarky, I think Hugh's available. It's not too late. So somebody
just pointed out, baby.
If I do this with my arm in chat, it looks like I'm passing Snarky a drink. Look.
Oh, it does. It looks like you're trying to poke me.
Don't say that live on air. What are you trying to do to me?
Just before we go on, let me just read out one or two super chats, because there's a couple of big ones that came in while we were chatting there. Come on, scroll up. This is one from Shan Wikram Singh. Says, I saw the Demi Moore film The Substance just before the previous open bar. Found it interesting, so I saw it a second time. It's not for everyone, but I liked it and I thought it was good. There were many amazing visuals that you could frame and hang on your wall.
Yeah,
I've heard a little bit about this movie, but is it any good?
I've just seen it. I give it 8.5 to 9 out of 10.
Pretty good then.
I'm not sure I can watch it again.
Loads of people are raving about it, but I watched the trailer. Really doesn't seem like my kind of movie. It looks like a chick flick, so.
No, it's not a chick flick. Don't take a date to see it. That would be a mistake.
No, I mean, but it just seems to be about a woman who's really concerned with her looks. Is the way the trailer is pitching it. I'm like that.
Yeah, that's not.
Doesn't seem like my kind of thing.
That's a regular Tuesday for me. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it was almost like the Agatha crowd would be very interested in it. So when I found out like Epic Mike and I think Perry Chan and like really liked it, I was kind of surprised.
Think of that done by David Cronenberg.
Well, no, I'm saying they're not the Agatha crowd. Right. This is why I'm surprised they like the movie.
Just imagine David Cronenberg directing.
I don't know about Epic Mike. Maybe he loves it.
And you'll know what you're going to get. It's up there with The Fly. It's pretty.
Right. Well, it's nice to see Demi Moore getting out and about as well, because I haven't seen her in anything in about 10 years.
It's one of the best performances of her career. She was amazing. And I mean, talking about good makeup as well on The Penguin, there is some fantastic makeup in that film as well. So got to admire that skill set.
Out of all the things you said, it's up there with The Fly is one of the quickest and easiest sells for me to go see that.
Yeah.
It feels like you're watching a Cronenberg movie. The director, I think, has even said publicly she was inspired by his work. So you can really see it. And I'd be surprised.
Is it a horror movie?
Yeah. It's
I think. Yeah.
Just a
If
bit.
it's inspired by The Fly, MauLer, it's probably not going to be a romantic comedy.
I don't know if it's inspired by The Fly.
Well, we went from fucking chick flick to horror movie. I'm a little bit confused.
It's not a chick flick. It's not.
But the trailer does pitch it that way. It's weird.
Yeah, it's pretty up there. It's
This is a two-parter as well, this one, so I'll try and get through this one. Barry Ryan says, "Hi, boys, it's me again. It's been just over a year now, and shit, I stopped drinking. I gave weed a try for 6 months, but started smoking again after my 18-year-old nephew took his life and my son's best friend. Also, only 18, died in a house fire 2 weeks later. Damn, but where's part 2 of this? But on the 18th of November, the girl from the USA I'm planning on moving over to live with on a farm is flying over to spend 4 days with me. 43-year-old single dad of 2 boys who also looked after my 19-year-old girlfriend since she was 14 as well. Love ya." Okay. Damn, there's a lot to unpack with that one, I suppose, man.
Yeah, just get some bereavement counselling, man, for that. That first thing, because I know what I'm talking about with that. I mean, but just good luck. Good luck with the lady coming over.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for happiness.
And John Gates says, "Rings of Power metaphor talk." Here we go. "Just as air freshening spray masks the smell of shite, the Penguin cleanses the stench of Agatha and Rings of Power from our collective screens. With 1 episode left, Rings of Power's shite still swirls and its stench remains." Never a truer word was spoken, I would say. That was poetic. Beautiful. We will talk about Rings of Power, but I'm trying to put it off as long as possible.
Celebrimbor did do a speech like that, though, just as he's about to go, I'm going to go back into Sarah, suddenly turns poetic. He's like, "No, the light always fends off the darkness, is stronger than any army." I'm like, you've just proved yourself to be evil. I don't care about your philosophy at this point.
Yeah. You know how like the entire battle just stopped for about 5 minutes so that you could deliver that extremely long speech? No, I have to be disciplined. I'm not talking about it yet. I'll get into Rings of Power in a minute. But I'm not going to say it's better, but Agatha All Along, we all experienced that today. And I just had a bit of a crisis while watching it. I had this weird moment of realization of, oh my God, this is real. Like, this is an actual show that people made. And I'm watching it. And it cost hundreds of millions of dollars, probably. I have lost all faith in modern entertainment if this is what they're making. I'm terrified now. It's a strange effect, but wow, that episode was pure trash.
I did hope that the oven was a trap. That was my one hope going into the end. Like, I'm not going in there.
Like each person goes in and it's just like this rush of flame comes out after them. Like, okay, you next. Wow, what can we even say about this? It truly is a show for middle-aged wine-drinking women that are single, I suppose, as we literally got that in this show.
Drinker, why did you make me watch this, man? I feel like I'm going to need counselling after seeing this show.
Help me, panel. Help me understand what this show is.
They're on the Witch's Road, and they've got challenges to overcome, and challenge number 1 is drink wine. Which sounds like a parody.
Can do.
Snarky, do you drink wine? Can you offer insights?
I actually don't drink. So I was lost.
Right, leave now. Get out.
I'm sorry.
This side.
I don't need booze to be deranged, which is why it all works. Yeah, I want to like it, and it just gets worse every time. The first 2 episodes I thought were atrocious. I didn't think it looked good from the start, and it's funny because this episode I was watching it and I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's take off the angry hat and let's remember that we used to love Marvel, right? Let's see the logo and let's hang in there. And the whole time I'm like, they're drinking wine, they're in a beach house. This looks like a Hallmark movie. The dialogue is ass, to put it in an uneloquent way. It's just like, who is this? Because I don't even think like wine moms give a shit about this. That's the problem. Is I don't know a single woman over 40 who heard of this and was like, yep, for sure. That's my jam. It's not my jam. It's not your jam. Like, who is this? This has to be like a money laundering operation.
It is for them, but the issue is they hired the cast, which are also the target audience, and as we found out on the red carpet, they have never watched Marvel either. It is literally you're aiming it at a target demographic that does not care about the product you're making. They're all off watching Bridgerton and other stuff like that. They'd know all the things over there. The demographic does exist. They just do not care about superhero shows, so stop trying to make them. When even your own cast can't be bothered to watch anything to do with it, and they're giving interviews like, no, I'm not. I didn't even understand the show. I watched what I want to be honest. And it kind of even showed that they don't care about their own target demographic when they're taking the piss out of them in their own show. One of them literally goes, these clothes look like my own customers, who are people that she's been feeding edible candles to and giving second-degree burns. So maybe not take the piss out your own audience and your own show. Just an idea.
I have to say as well, like, I think this might be the worst acting that I've seen in any Marvel project
Thank
ever,
you.
actually. And it's baffling as well because, you know, the featurettes and the behind-the-scenes stuff, they talked about the main actress. Is it Catherine Hahn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were talking about, like, oh, we were really surprised that she's not just funny, but she's a really good dramatic actress. And I thought, you've obviously seen a different actress at play here and got the names mixed up or something. But there's moments, right, where there's a scene where they're all hallucinating and she hallucinates like a baby in a crib and it's like the child that she gave up. And for like a good 5, maybe 6 seconds, she actually delivers a pretty good acting performance. It's like, wow, she looks genuinely moved and then shocked and terrified and confused. It's just the other 99.5% of the show, she's utterly, utterly fucking terrible. And it's like she's a caricature of her character. And I don't get it. I don't get what they're going for with this show.
I feel like they're all caricatures, though. Like, it almost feels like they
are,
all
but I don't with the
audience.
others, because generally they're a bunch of nobodies apart from Aubrey Plaza. I don't know if they're good actors or not. Maybe this is just the best they can deliver.
No, she's
with her, obviously,
she's a good actress. I've seen her in a lot of other stuff, and she's been around for a long time. She can act. I would blame the director and the script.
Well, yeah, I'm getting Ghostbusters 2016 vibes from the tone of the filming of this, which is we're all having fun. You hit record, everyone delivers a scene, someone goes, "Oh, that was great," and then the director's like, "Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, we'll keep that. That was really good. Next one, is everyone happy in your toilet? You know, nothing like." Everything's very chill, happy, and by the end they're like, "Wow, what a show we made!" And then they look at it and post like, "Oh, that was shit." We didn't.
I got a different impression where none of them really get on or like each other, or they just don't know each other behind the scenes, and then they roll the cameras, and it's like, okay, we're having great fun, and we've got great chemistry, like spark, 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 go, and like they just can't deliver it because there's just nothing there, and I got no chemistry between any of the actresses in this.
Either way, no chemistry. I completely agree. There's it feels very awkward, very staged, very just we're here to do a job, let's get it done. And for all, because I've seen a lot of movies and TV in my time, I've managed to not see much from Catherine Hahn, so I can't speak to her abilities as an actress. But I was told by many people she's very good. This show does not give you that impression whatsoever. These first 3 episodes, I've been watching her kind of clown around, and I guess that's what she was told to do. That's the benefit of the doubt I'm going to give her. I was just like, I don't get this. Like, I'm not impressed at all. It's just kind of awkward. Obviously, I didn't care about Agatha anyway. We saw her briefly in a TV show where they told me she did everything, and I still don't know what that meant. So I think it's all very up in the air still. And, you know, this episode, you could argue, is like, well, this is one where we got to get some like deep-seated sort of histories for each of the characters. I was like, not really. I didn't know what any of that meant. I saw a lot of the flashbacks. Yeah, like it's like
hints at something.
It feels more like it's the promise of backstory you'll get in the future.
Oh no, I think that was the entire backstory. I'm pretty sure that was it.
Yeah,
but I think it's Agatha is trying to play this kind of nonchalant, I don't care about any of you, I'm above you, you're all right. And it's like, well, if you don't care about any of these people, why should I? And they haven't given you a reason to care about Agatha because she's a literal evil witch. Her entire thing was about the Darkhold, which is an evil book. She goes around hurting people. And so there's got to be something that makes me root for the main character, because at the moment you're evil, so I don't want you to reach the end, because then you'll get more power to do more evil things with it. So what reason do I have for you to even want to get through this? At the moment, I just want you all to go down the road and die. That is the one promise of this show that might give me some kind of entertainment.
Well, we're one down already, so that's probably...
Yeah, they killed one of them.
Yeah, the woman they dragged in for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is funny because she was probably the most entertaining. Just the idea of a fish out of water who has no idea what the fuck's going on.
And she died because they forgot about her. Like, they had plenty of time to feed her the stuff, but they just forgot she existed.
The driving force behind this show is a woman called Jacqueline Schaefer, and I mean, in case people don't know, she wrote Black Widow, which was a film I saw about 15 minutes of, and then decided to switch it off. She did the Dirty
It's a smart
Rotten
move.
Scoundrels remake, and she wrote The Hustle, which did pretty well. But she grew up in the Agora Hills of California, and for anybody who doesn't know, that is massive wine country. Massive wine country. There are vineyards everywhere, all around there. It is a lot of middle class people drinking a lot of wine. So I'm not surprised that this sort of natural backdrop is, making its
So
full
that
name.
tracks.
Well, and I get the impression, right? So when they do these, like every week, it's going to be a new trial, and it's going to test each one of them in some way. Like obviously, in this episode, it was the potion lady who had to like figure out the antidote. Okay, and I'm assuming there's going to be a change of costume, and it's going to like harken back to some different era, like the 60s or something. There's going to be like one that's like a disco themed one. And I'm just like, okay, again, this is a show targeted towards women and probably older women who remember a lot of these different decades. And again, why? That's not your audience from Marvel.
But
What
see,
are you hoping for?
I feel like, and this might, okay, I've seen plenty of Hallmark, unfortunately, because I have aunts. And I can't stand anything on the Hallmark or Lifetime channels. However, I will say that most of the content I think made for wine moms that's supposed to be like a drama or something is usually terribly written and over the top, but at least has some sort of like, here's something for you to get overly mad at or get really into, and then they can tweet about it or whatever. But this just feels like crap. Like, it's not funny. Every character feels like they're actively competing to be more kooky and more annoying than the next. Like, I almost feel like they said, this is for wine moms, also we hate you. Like, I don't understand. This feels like openly antagonistic, and I came to that conclusion, like you said, like obviously in the next few episodes we're going to see each witch go through a trial. When I realized they were spending the entire 40 minutes on this one trial, I was like, oh, it's that kind of show. Holy shit. Like, I feel like the first two episodes I was almost, this is awful, but maybe, and then they just sank the ship with this one. It's irredeemable.
It's the crazy amount of detail they went into with this fucking trial as well, because it's like they got to brew a potion to cure the poison that they've all got. Like, okay, why didn't just one person drink the wine? Why did they all have to drink it? Because clearly they don't all have to drink it. Like, the young guy hasn't drunk it. So
did they say that there's something about like all the witches? Because the young guy suggests he drinks at one point, and they say you're not a witch. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but
He's
like,
not
what
part
would
of
have
that
happened?
coven.
Okay, so hypothetically, say they hadn't thought of that, or he just grabbed a glass and got over enthusiastic and drank it, right? They wouldn't have been able to brew the poison that saved them all, so they would have all literally died because of that. Because they need the blood of someone who's not been poisoned. Or what if like it was a coven of witches that didn't have a guy like him, an outsider, with them? Again, they'd be fucked.
When we find out like she never drank it, and then they're like, you have to, and then they're like, fine, I'll drink it instead of you. I was just sitting here being like, what are the rules? Are you supposed to? Who said who's supposed to drink the fucking thing? I don't know.
The timer's started already, so it's like clearly you've triggered whatever the trial is. Like, so you don't need more than one person to drink it. And it's just, it's all dumb, and it's like, okay, you have to brew this potion up, and we need these very specific ingredients. And it seems to be based around the shit that like they've all produced. Like the potion lady has got this skincare range or whatever. What if she didn't? What if that stuff wasn't in the bathroom, and so they didn't have the elements they needed to make this thing? Well, are they just going to die? Is it impossible then?
I think they just go, it's magic.
Was that the point of the trial, that the stuff was there for them to solve their own problem? They just have to figure it out? Is like, I have no idea how any of this works, and it doesn't feel like the show wants to explain.
Neither do they. They don't know how it works either.
They said it was a test of their skill, but this seemed like a really basic potion that wasn't like a great test. If the prize at the end of this is literally what you want in the most of the world, you would think it would be some like really complicated high-level thing, not make a potion for a random poison that we give you.
See, yeah, because I do like the idea of like, if say you've got a group of characters and like they're all going to be tested in their own unique way, like it'll find their greatest fear, their greatest weakness, their greatest regret, whatever, and force them to confront it and find a way to overcome it. That's an interesting enough way to shed light on a character and really expose who they are and what their biggest fears are and stuff. You know, it's been done a million times, but it works fine. This is just, as you say, really basic bitch stuff. That's just, it's not impressive. It's just a case of gather items to make thing to solve problem. That's not really a trial. That's just like a fetch quest.
You're not really.
So I don't really show. I don't know what this show was trying to tell us about any of these people, because we just got little hints about a backstory that I guess is going to get expanded on in another episode.
You're not invested in anybody. You've got to be invested in characters for a show to work. You've got to care about people, even if your protagonist is a bad person, like in The Penguin. You've got to care about that protagonist.
I am invested in that. I want them all to die.
Well, I mean, that could be interesting if that's what happens in the next episode. Then the show's delivering you exactly what you want. I don't think we're going to get that, though.
But to root for a villain, you either have to align with their motives, so like they actually want something that you'd kind of agree with, or you at least have to be able to understand how they get there. Like Breaking Bad, most people understood how he got there. He's like, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I need the money for my family and everything. That's kind of a thing that even though he's breaking the law, you can support him, because a lot of the people he harms are criminals in the first place, so who cares about that kind of thing? Whereas in this, no, she will just harm and kill anybody. She literally doesn't care. In the witch that dies, she doesn't even know her name or kind of forgets about her immediately. So without that, you'd have to come up with something, like she'd have to be likable. She'd have to be actually funny. And so they've got nothing. You would just end up despising this character as she's just like it's overacting over the top. And I mean, I did like when she started calling the other guy a pet. I did actually think that was funny. Just like, that's because I don't like him either, to be honest. So the more they just insult and hurt each other, the funnier it is.
Well, he's so insufferable. He's so like timid and easily flustered, and he never stands up for himself in any situation. And he's like terrified to even open his mouth. There's nothing to latch onto with that character. Like, there's nothing endearing about him. He's just annoying. And like, again, I don't know if that's the writer's idea of what they want a guy to be like or whatever, but god damn.
That's what I think is the issue with him, though, because like I hate to draw comparisons, but we really can, because we are currently watching two shows about villains. Technically, you look at oh my god, what's this kid's name? I only remember his last name is Agatha. Victor in The Penguin. He is timid and has that stutter and stuff like that, and yet he makes like a perfect, like the flip side of the coin to the Penguin, because they're kind of like one and the same. And then with Agatha All Along, instead of like the teen or whatever being useful and sort of respected for his knowledge, right? Because he's proven that he's read all this stuff about her and witch magic and all that stuff. Instead, he's kind of like a fanboy. Like they picked up somebody at Comic-Con and let him follow the actors around, and he's just like throwing out excited bits of information. Like, I think my wiener dog would do the exact same thing, pretty much. It's embarrassing, like watching. You almost feel bad watching him be treated like that. But I think they just brought a man into the show, a boy, so that they could do that and make sure that they reminded you exactly who's in power here and who's relevant and who's not.
Well, the weird thing is, they're treating it as a mystery of like who he is, but they've already released trailers where they've revealed his name is Billy. In interviews, Jack Schaefer has already said he's the one casting the spell that hides his own history. So they're actually telling people the mystery in interviews outside the show as it is. So, and I think in this episode, it hinted that either he's Agatha's son that got sold to Mephisto, or it's Scarlet Witch's. So
I think it'll be a red herring, him being Agatha's son, because it's so obvious. And maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit here, but it's like he has a conversation with other generic Asian witch. I can't even remember her fucking name. Where like she says to him, "Oh, you know that Agatha gave up her only baby, right, so that she could get the Darkhold, and now she wouldn't even know him, even if she was stood right next to him in a room that looked like it came out of a Hallmark channel, where you have to do a challenge of drinking wine." It's like so, like what our dialogue is so specific. It's like, okay, this cannot possibly be legit. That can't be what
we thought the same thing about the Acolyte.
I know, I'm giving them too much credit.
I thought we
it's too soon. It's too soon to talk about that one.
Scarlet Witch's sons. I thought that was already figured out. I can't remember what the source is on that though.
Well, I can't remember her son's name. If it's Billy,
Wicked.
then it's that. Yeah.
I think that's what it is, but I think the show doesn't expect us to know that, and it's trying to like give
They should take out the subtitles then.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think wasn't it something like in when you look at his lip sync for when the magical shit comes up, someone said they'd already figured out what he said. So like it was some like trailer.
The internet
comment or
always
whatever.
figures it out. Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, you sound so gripped by it. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, like I
Very
say, it's just
invested.
such a culture shock to go from something like The Penguin, where it's like, oh, okay, this is quite well written, quite smart, like well acted, quite mature, and then you get this fucking tripe, and it's just, I don't even know what to make of it, man. It's just, I have some kind of like crisis of entertainment where I just think like this is a thing that really got made.
Are you going to watch the rest of it, or are you going to call it quits now?
I honestly don't know.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, man, but I feel like the
It's like
question needs
I
to
tell
be
you what,
asked.
right? I tell you what my answer would be. If the episodes were an hour long, like Rings of Power, I'd say no fucking way I'm out. Because it's so short. Like once you skip through the recap of the previous week and the end credits and all the other crap that comes with it, it's like barely 30 minutes, so you can breeze through it pretty quickly. So I might just watch it just so that I can review it at the end, give my thoughts on the series. Because
Right.
damn, like this is Marvel's Acolyte, essentially. This is what we're seeing right here. It's that
Pretty
bad.
much.
And these always get worse because the more they explain the plot, the less it's going to make sense. But the more
Yeah.
they're going to think it makes sense, so they're going to start acting it up as it's really dramatic. Like when Billy gets revealed, and he's already said in an interview as well that he's going to go head to head with Agatha. Oh, I start really underpowered, but I get the powers. I've never seen a show where they tell me so much about this mysterious plot before it appears.
You mean
Yeah.
spoon feeding you the story?
What? Well, no, it's like they don't know what to... Like, a lot of people, because I think on the red carpet, they were like, well, I can't tell you anything. But then in all the interviews that they did afterwards, they were just answering any question that was asked. So...
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
I'd give it 2 more, and I this was 1 of 2, and I kind of agree that like they feel short, really. Like, what is a half hour of my day? But honestly, I feel brain cells slowly being rotted
Yeah.
as I watch this, and I really don't have enough to spare. So I don't know how much more of this I'm gonna watch.
The key is to try and do something else while you're watching it. Like, you know, like I watch Rings of Power
Remember to
when I'm getting a workout in the gym, so at least I've accomplished something while I've given up an hour to doing that. You know, like at least then you don't feel like your time is completely wasted. But yeah, it needs to be something halfway decent. And this is just something else, man.
It's not.
Yeah, like
I'm just amused by the fact that they'd be like, you know, you'll be watching in your home theater, Rings of Power, this epic blah blah. Drigger's just like doing weights, like listening to half of it, sort of thing.
I'm listening to like these tortured metaphors, and it actually builds up the rage. Like it actually helps me get a better work. Like, oh, fucking hell!
I just like the idea
believe
that, you know, they're like, you're never gonna like it if you watch it like that. And you're like, no, trust me, I like it more this way than if you were forcing me to pay like 100% attention.
I think when people say turn your brain off to watch TV, I literally think that's what they mean. Like if you're doing like if you're gaming, some TV is better because you don't have to concentrate on it. So all the plot holes fall away and just kind of look over occasionally to hear what the plot is. And I think a lot of these shows, they're just like if you're doing laundry, if you're doing work around the house, literally have it on, it's background audio, not really concentrating, and then just like, oh, it was good, and then never think about it again.
I tell
Imagine
you
that,
one thing, like
spending hundreds
there's-
of millions to reach the pedigree of your average YouTube video.
yeah, there's Marvel shows that I just had no interest in watching, and I'll never watch. Probably, Hawkeye is one of them. Secret Invasion is another one. Like because I feel like they're just so blandly shit that they're completely forgettable, and like there's nothing to even recommend them. Like, but this is the kind of it crosses that hidden boundary into so bad that I can at least have fun making fun out of it. Right?
Like
There's
the
something
Acolyte.
there. But those other shows were just like meh. Like there's nothing there to really grapple with. It's not great or terrible. This is firmly in the terrible range. And so that's almost something that makes it somehow stand out a bit more. I don't know. It's She-Hulk level of
Oh my
Marvel
God.
cringe.
Don't even bring up She-Hulk. She-Hulk.
I have to, 'cause I have to
She-Hulk
compare
is
it
my
to
trigger
something.
word.
I'm proud
See,
to
but
say
the
I've
pro-
not
the
seen a single
problem is,
episode
like-
of She-Hulk. So
You're lucky you haven't seen She-Hulk. But what drives me nuts is like, okay, Marvel has kind of been ass for like a period of time. But like, for instance, when Werewolf by Night came out, I don't know how many people remember that one. I thought that was great, and it was weird, and it was offbeat, and it wasn't like a top build Marvel character at all. Like, I don't think anybody's walking around with anybody from Werewolf by Night on a lunchbox or a thermos. And yet it was so good because the expectations were non-existent. And so you think about a character like Agatha, and it's like, okay, my expectations were non-existent because who gives a shit? And then they somehow dig under the bar. Like, the bar is on the floor, and they brought in bulldozers and shovels, and they got underneath it just to disappoint and annoy me. It's incredible.
I mean, it's I can't get too mad about it, though, at least because it doesn't destroy any other character that I think, is halfway decent. Like, I can think
Also
about
true.
She-Hulk, for example, and then think, well, good Lord, you disrespected Bruce Banner right there. That fucking cringe-inducing speech that she gives about how she's, has to hold in her rage constantly because sometimes she gets catcalled in the street or whatever. And like, that's way worse than putting a gun in your mouth and literally trying to murder yourself because you just want it to end, and then you still can't because you turn into the Hulk. Basically being trapped in an eternal living nightmare of not being able to die or do anything about it. Yeah, sure, you're worse off. So that was more rage-inducing because it's like you're just shitting on every like good character that's in your path. Agatha is just in its own little pocket universe of garbage, so like it doesn't even matter at this point.
It will get connected though with things like Vision. I know at least one of the witches from this will be in that, and it says more Marvel projects. And so they definitely want it to be connected. I just find it weird that you looked at any of these characters and thought, no, we need them in more movies.
My understanding of this show is that it's part of that like pipeline of sludge that has to work its way out before they get to the better stuff.
that's a long pipeline.
It is,
But
yeah.
why?
Well, essentially, like Marvel realized at a certain point, like, yeah, we fucked up. Like everyone hates what we did with Phase 4 and 5, and like we need to change course with this. And we're working on doing that. But like, there's a bunch of stuff that we made already, and it's like, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars we spent on all these different movies and shows. We can't just cancel them all. We have to do something, and it's like, I don't know, like from their point of view, we just have to grit our teeth, clench our buttocks, and get them out into the world, and then move on to the better stuff. And this is one of those things. It's like they knew it was going to suck. I'm kind of surprised they didn't just release it all at once, but like they just have to get rid of it now. And further down the line, they'll get the better stuff coming through in like a year or two. That I think is their intention. I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
Someone got a new infinity pool for their, Malibu beach house. Trust me, out of one of these shows.
I'm sure. Yeah, there must be an element of money laundering going on here because much like the Acolyte, which now we're learning cost $230 million, this probably was well north of 150 million at least because it's an effects-heavy show.
Man.
Yeah,
and they were really bragging that all the effects and everything were all done. None of it was CGI, and then you find out, well, you just set your entire thing in a house. No wonder it wasn't CGI. Every single dilution you had was just another character turning up, so you didn't have to do anything for that either. So it just seems like we just went back to basics and made it like a Doctor Who episode.
There was certain tiny little moments that I thought, oh, I like what you did there. Like the bit where the camera pans around from the witches who are in the road in the fucking haunted forest, and then it's like the beach house with that stuff in the back, and you can see the layers of like scenery that they use to make that effect. It's a very like 1950s matinee kind of like style of doing filmmaking, but I kind of liked it. It's nice to see that again, and it's like I can tell that's what they did. So stuff like that is kind of nice, but like it's all for nothing if the script is garbage, and that's what we're dealing with here.
That budget that you mentioned, did you mean that's for Agatha, or did you mean the Acolyte? Because you said the Acolyte.
230 is the Acolyte.
Yeah, so the Acolyte, because originally it was pegged at 180 million, right. And then we found out actually when they released their tax reports on it, it was 230 million that they spent on the Acolyte.
Yeah, I heard that. So what's the budget for Acolyte? Does MauLer know? I think he mentioned it earlier.
You mean Agatha?
Agatha. Yeah.
So
Sorry,
we don't-
I'm getting confused now.
But
They're both of similar quality, so I'm finding it hard to tell them apart.
I'm guesstimating. I'm assuming it was probably a bit less, just because it's not as effects heavy as a Star Wars show, but it's probably well north of 100 million at least.
Whatever it is, you can't see it on screen. It's all very cheap. That's the one thing I'll give Rings of Power on the recent episode, especially watching that like behind the scenes thing at the end. I was like, oh god, look how much money they spent on this.
Don't get me started on that self-congratulating. Yeah, it's just with the fake audience laughing in the background, and it's done with green screen and
it's no less false than like the storytelling they have in the Rings of Power. The meta sort of like after the show discussions. It sucks. Those things used to be kind of fun back in the day. They had real people on them who would talk about real things.
I remember there was a great after show for 24, right? After every episode, they would do like a show like that. And it was like, because they were speculating on what was going to happen next. They'd have some of the actors in, and it was genuinely really cool because like you were hyped for what was going to happen next with the story. With this, I don't know, man. I'm just hurtling towards that end of season where I can just put this behind me for another couple of years.
We've only got one episode of Rings of Power left, I think.
Is that it? Is there only one
Isn't
left?
that crazy? Like, because they just dump half the season out almost straight away. It's just...
2 weeks in, it was halfway finished. It was wild.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys, should we talk about it now? Because like we can either talk about the Rings of Power or we can talk about the Thunderbolts trailer. I'll leave it up to you. I feel like I'm trying to put it off as long as possible.
Things wrong with the battle list ready here.
Okay, yeah.
Did you write down why did no one set the siege equipment on fire?
Well, among many.
This thing's just by the wall. I mean, we could very easily just... No.
Why didn't the water sweep away the siege equipment that just
Only
came down the side of the rocks,
lantern napalm equipment, which apparently they did near the end of the fight. So
they all had flaming arrows. There was a woman walking on the battlefield with them that he asked how many she got left. No one on the wall. No.
I'm gonna guess from the direction the conversation's gone that you'd rather get into Rings of Power here. So
I was just gonna say how much damage we've done to the chat should be considered a crime already, but I guess we could carry on. It's like whatever, they're dead at this point, so we can just.
I find it weird that you think the Thunderbolts would be like more entertaining. Did you? I don't know if
that would be more or less pain at this point. It's hard to say.
To be fair to Snarky, maybe we should do Thunderbolts because I know we've
whatever y'all want to do. I'm not trying to stop your Rings of Power hate train over here. Whatever y'all want to do, I'm not here to interrupt.
I don't want to hate the show. I'm a big Tolkien fan. I want a good.
That's why you hate the show.
I want a good Tolkien show. I wanted it to be good. I really did. And I've been trying to be constructive about the things I like about it. And there are things I like about it. It's just that the mistakes are so big and so terrible. Nothing about that battle scene makes any sense. There's no stakes. There's no setup.
Yeah.
It's all done arse-faced back to front. The editor must have had a nightmare putting that together. He must have been getting footage and going, none of this makes any sense. What am I supposed to do with this? Like when the woman gets gunned down by all the arrows, all coming from different directions, different heights. Where are the orcs that are firing those? Why are we not cutting to the orcs that are targeting her at least to show where they are? Somehow targeting this woman in this battle that's taking place in a riverbed where people should be sinking because
you know what
water.
You know what that Archer scene was. They were just going, "Oh, well, Sean Bean had a good death, didn't he?" That's all that was.
That's all it was. Because, like, Snarky, have you seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy at all?
I don't know if y'all remember the first time I was on here, I got flamed for saying that I have not seen Lord of the Rings.
It's been a while. You could have watched it since then, right?
Yeah.
I could have, and somehow I didn't. Somehow I've seen all of Agatha All Along, and I haven't seen this.
The best way to look at this show is like it's trying to rip off all the big moments, the coolest lines of dialogue, the most epic character beats and stuff of that trilogy, but it's shit. It's like if the writers of Agatha All Along were put in charge of Captain America and the Winter Soldier or something. Like it's that level of incompetence. And so it's kind of hilarious and tragic at the same time, because this is what we're having to endure as fans of the books, I suppose, and the movies. A show made by idiots for idiots, probably. Like, there's got to be the target audience. And yeah, it is just constantly like ripping off things that have been done far better already. And that's the sad thing about
not
it.
even doing a good job of ripping them off, like the Charge of the Rohirrim. They get all those horses, and then suddenly somebody does a word command of stop, like the 200 people can hear that over there.
Mhm.
And horses don't just stop. You know, have you ridden on a horse before? One guy commanding a wave of 1,000 horses. The horses at the back are not going to hear that. Yeah, I know elves have got sensitive hearing.
And
But,
they stop in
you
a
know,
perfectly straight line from a
Yeah.
triangular formation. I don't even know
Yeah,
how that
I'm
works.
gonna have to say
about
this
6
as well.
feet, about 6 feet from the enemy, not
They
like 50
freeze.
feet. It's about 6 feet away. I mean, it's
You know what I
absolute
love?
nonsense.
You know what I love about that whole scene as well, right? The shot where it's like the two opposing armies are about 6 feet apart, like the cavalry have all stopped and the
Yeah.
orcs are on the other side, and the fucking sunlight is just shining down on the elves, and then on the orc side it's just like dark. Like, how does that even work? Does the
imagine, like,
dark
them
just
backing
follow
up
them
to track
around
it.
wherever they go?
Drinker, you understand? That's a shitty, misunderstanding copy of the Helm's Deep fight's big old payoff at the end with Gandalf and the
Yeah.
Rohirrim.
Oh,
Like,
I
that's-
know
that's
exactly
what so
what
much
it's
of
trying
it
to
is.
be.
When you just look at it through a prism of a child watching Helm's Deep and be like, I want that, and then
So
like
it's
repeat.
like sunlight follow bright horses. Yay!
I don't know if I've ever seen in my entire fucking life the armies have negotiations while the sack is simply continuing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the whole place is burning down, and they're just like, "So, Tim's."
Yeah, yeah.
So
What's
I'm
going on?
gonna because it's actually good that Snarky's here, because she could try and like see this from an outsider's perspective, right? So imagine you've got like this city that you have to defend, like it's real important, right? And you've got loads of like all your allies are in there and stuff, and it's besieged by a giant army of orcs, right? And you come in on your cavalry, right? And you're like, I'm gonna fuck these orcs up, like big time. And just as you're approaching them, they've got like this cage right at the front of their army. They whip back the cover on it, and oh no, they've got one of your best friends there as hostage, right? So somehow you just say like stop, and then it brings all this like thousands of cavalry to a halt, because you can definitely do that with horses that
about
are
3
charging,
seconds.
right? And then you go off and have a negotiation with the commander of that army while they're still besieging this city, right? And the conversation goes something like this. We've got your friend here, and we're going to totally kill her if you don't leave. And then you go, wow, we're going to mess you up anyway. And then they let you leave with the woman still like held hostage, and there's nothing really resolved by any of that, and you just kind of go on your way. That's what happens in this episode. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Is that actually like that's not an exaggeration?
No,
that's essentially the way this story or the way this dialogue plays out. I don't understand what they're hoping to accomplish with it.
They don't even show how that battle sort of picks up again. It's like they show the orcs kind of snarling at the leader as he's leaving, and he's going, "Oh dear, they look a bit angry.
Oh yeah,
maybe I should move a bit faster."
No, but you know what's even better?
You know?
Walking away from that negotiation with like one of your second in command, right? While you're surrounded by like all these orcs that can totally hear everything you're saying, and going, man, we be fucked because they outnumber us 10-1, and there's no way we're going to be able to defeat them. And then you saying, don't worry, there's an army of dwarves that are totally going to come help us at dawn. That'll be the thing that makes the difference. While they're around you and they can hear everything you say.
Yeah, it's not even that whole conversation's not even done in Elven. They keep switching to English for the key tactical points. Like they're, by the way, orcs, in case you want to know what we're up to, here's our plan. I mean, it's like an episode of Scooby-Doo where the bad guy's like, oh, I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you meddling orcs. You know, it's just it's so poor.
It sounds like it's a Saturday morning cartoon and not what I know of Lord of the Rings.
It's a Saturday morning cartoon made with $1 billion budget.
That's insane.
That's essentially what you're dealing with here.
They truly bet everything on that reveal as well. Because when I was watching it with Fringy, he was like, "Where are their archers? Why are they like getting their spears ready?" Sort of shit. And I was like, because I saw the box coming. I was like, "Oh, Galadriel's in the box." And he's like, "Why Why would that wouldn't change anything? And I was like, yeah, but she's in the box. She's coming in the box. They're
What's
gonna
in the
reveal it.
box?
And then they do, and they all just the stop. It's funny because there's so many absurd moments, but that one is definitely one of the highlights of just what the fuck just happened. Why
And
did
also,
this just
like,
happen?
Wouldn't it be better to just keep on charging, kill all the orcs around her, and then just rescue her from the box?
Yeah.
When they
I
show
mean, like,
her
take your-
and they've got like a
take your
knife from it,
chances.
I honestly, if I were leading the charge, would have been like, fuck it. All right, everyone, try and not trample Galadriel, but get in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
casualties
it's
of
like
war.
this is a battle for essentially the fate of the world. And
Also,
like,
that was the leader, just right there. Could have killed him. Could have. Also, you would have smashed that orc selection because none of them were prepared. I guess they were all told the elves will stop. There is no need to prepare for anything other than that, which is just stupid as well. But whatever.
So,
You
yeah,
know,
I mean, none of that makes sense. But the bigger problem I think I have with this whole episode, it's all based around the battle for this city, right? And it's so there's no real sense of the progression of the battle. I didn't really get a sense of like which side is winning or losing. I didn't know who was gaining ground because most of it takes place at night where it's just a bunch of confused fighting. And it's just, it doesn't mean anything because I don't know who's gaining ground or what.
No, there's no sense of tactics or tactical positions either. By the way, when they do that damn thing, right? And this whole city is in front of a massive mountain. So if your super trebuchet can reach all the way over there, about 5 miles, why don't you just fire it directly at the mountain that's above the city and cause a massive avalanche to come down on all the defenders? It's just nonsense, because all the things they create for that battle don't make any physical or logical sense, even in a fantasy setting.
What was the point of the troll guy as well?
Because like three guys took him down.
They hyped the shit out of that guy, and then he did absolutely nothing and then just died.
Did you like his death cry, Drinker? Wasn't that so like meaningful and effective?
It just made me think of Christopher Walken in that fucking Bond movie. What was it?
View to a Kill. When he's
when he's hanging off the bridge, right? And he fucking laughs and then falls off.
Yeah, it was.
It was like that.
Well, so when they're like, everyone make way, bring him in, and he starts coming, and they're all like, I was just like, well, you guys can handle that. This is a troll. You can do that.
Just keep shooting him with loads and loads of arrows, and eventually he'll go down.
You guys have got the tools to deal with this. Actually, you could do it. But they treat it as though it was some huge deal, and then several people stab it and it dies. And I was like, yep.
Arendir actually knocks him over just by jumping at him. He just falls straight back as if Arendir weighs like a metric ton or something. It was the most bizarre thing I've seen.
Yeah, be like a hamster leapt off a table and like hit you in the chest. Like, I don't think you're going to fall over somehow. Like,
yeah. Elves so light they can walk across snow without sinking. But Arendir, no, he can control his weight.
Is he dead, by the way? Clarify that for me.
Well, he's been talking about season 3, and he said, we will be really grateful to go into a season 3. So I don't think he is.
Unfortunately. Though I thought it was pretty funny how unceremonious it was of just, he's on the battlefield, killed somebody, he's dead, and then we go to, he's like, wait, what? Like, what would you just, I thought, because I don't care about him, right? But the fact
you're
that
talking about the elf leader guy, right? That comes on with the big spear. There was no emotional investment.
No. It's like
the archer.
Don Lemonlass.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the elf that comes on and Adar kills him?
Yeah.
Oh, that bit I cheered. I cheered at that bit. That bit I was because that character just is.
Yeah, no, he's lame as fuck, and he's got no purpose in the story. So I get all the reasons
deleted
to kill
him from most of the story.
But simultaneously, I was like, you guys know how to tell a story, right? They just completely ignored getting a boss fight. He just kills him. I was like,
you should have been completely invested in him in that moment if this had been done right. And the grand story of this show is not a bad idea. The creation of the rings, Sauron setting people against each other and setting them up. That as a concept is quite strong. It's just that the storytelling building blocks don't exist in this show. And the thing that annoys me about it so much as someone that works in the industry is a lot of people, and we're talking thousands, have worked really hard on this show. You can see it in areas like the production design, the costume, the makeup. There is some.
I wouldn't say the costumes, mate.
Some of them. Some of them. Look at them. You know, the horse armor and stuff like that. I think it's pretty good.
The only armored part of the horse is where the soldier sits. It's really quite weird.
Well,
like, the entire breastplate doesn't exist, but they've got armor all the way down the horse's back where they're sitting.
Yeah, well, but there is a lot of talent that have worked on the show. You know, people have worked very hard on it, and I just think it's a shame because the combined elements were there for something really fantastic, but it's just lost cohesion and it's really sloppy. And I just don't know how this became. After the first season, you would have thought someone would have really pulled the reins in on this because so much is at stake.
This was mostly written before the show even released. So they said they didn't take any customer kind of reviews or anything. It didn't affect it at all because it was already written.
Right. I didn't know. So that's interesting.
That's the impression I've gotten from watching the season. A lot of people say, like, is it better or worse than season one? It's like, I don't know. It fits quite well in with season one for me in terms of quality. I don't see a huge difference here. Like, it was awful.
It's more of the same, I would say.
Yeah.
The weirdest part was the marketing. How they were like, no, this right from the get-go. It's all action. It really kicks off. We dive straight into the story. It was like they knew what people wanted. And then the entire show is something totally different than they were marketing. It was really slow for episode after episode.
Loads of action is useless if you're not emotionally invested in the people taking part in it. If you don't care,
it's better than them talking.
Dies, if there's no stakes, action is irrelevant.
The example you gave was like the fight between Arondir and Adar, right? If that was properly built up, you would be super invested. Like, yeah, get in there, fucking kick his ass. Like, it's about time. Yeah. But in this, I kind of forgot the reason why he was even mad at him. And wanted to kill him.
Yeah, that had all gone completely out of my head. It just wasn't cemented in the story at all. I know we've changed actors with Adar, and I think actually Sam Hazeldene's done a brilliant job in that role, taking that role over. But you know,
can we? I also want to say, right, what is with this show constantly? Like, if you've got a prisoner who's super important to your cause, leaving them unguarded or like so weakly protected that like they can just escape easily, it's like Dr. Evil shit going on.
It's a bit like the A-Team,
twice within this episode, right? Galadriel is left pretty much unguarded so she can unlock herself from the cuffs because, Elrond gave her the lockpick thing. And Celebrimbor is left completely unguarded. And you've got the master metalsmith of the entire elven race manacled, right? I'm pretty sure he can figure out some way to get out of it.
I think Celebrimbor is guarded by Iluvatar, though. Every single time he stepped out of that tower, he immediately got hit by a flying rock. That is like God himself hated him. It happened twice.
Also, I like that you said that, Drinker. I was getting mad when he had the manacle on, and it's like, you've got the greatest smith of all time in a forge with that. You really think he's going to be able to... And he doesn't come up with a smith way of actually getting out of it. I was like,
you fucking hammer his
thumb off.
Yeah, he tried hitting it with a hammer. The master smith hit you with a fucking hammer.
I'm out of ideas.
Plus, hasn't he got all these kind of cool rings that can do shit? I don't know.
Yeah, there's no fucking way Sauron just planted like an impossible to manipulate metal on Celebrimbor. Let's say fuck off. Christ.
Yeah. Turns into Thanos. He just puts on all 9 rings at the same time.
I was wondering about that. I was like, would he be able to like blast Sauron with a laser if he did that?
I am Sauron now.
Yeah, and like with Galadriel, it's like, okay, I know the rules of modern writing dictate that she's not going to get rescued. She has to save herself because we know why. How's it going to happen? Okay, Elrond fucking snogs her, even though she's actually his mother-in-law in the books. And then I guess that's how he sneaks her the little brooch pin thing that she can then use to pick her cuffs. And then I just about tore my brain out of my head watching this. So she's walking through the orc encampment with a hood over her head, and none of them cotton on to the fact that she's a fucking elf. Like, they let her go on her way.
That was ridiculous.
Dar's in front of her at one point.
That was funny.
They even like get her to help with lifting dead bodies into a funeral pyre. Like, no one notices that she's got blonde hair and she's got like a human face.
They
the
can also
retarded orc
they
that
could have
spots her and
smelled
says
her.
like, "Oh, your hair's pretty," and then stares at her for about 3 seconds. And I was like, "Yeah, she's clearly not an orc, man." What are you-
It's not like she covers herself in orc blood or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's
No, I
not The
can't do
Walking
that.
Dead where you're trying to pretend to be a zombie. Orcs can smell. They know the different smell between humans and elves.
Well-
That's all been established in this world. So
even Sam and Frodo, like they disguise themselves because
Yeah.
they put on like
Yep.
face coverings, like masks and all that. Like, and it's okay. It's still a bit bullshitty, but like you can definitely see them blend in a little bit better.
they
This,
imitated the way they walked and
Well,
you
they've been
know,
on the road
Yeah.
for how long at that point? You can argue like there's a lot of things they do to make
They
that
would
more
reek.
believable.
they would
but-
reek at that point. They haven't had a good shower for quite a while by the time they get to Mount Doom. I think they would stink of orc by then.
some people are asking as well because I know this kicked up a lot of controversy. Like the brooch is how they'll justify the kiss. Yeah, that's how they're going to do it. I think
was
that's
that?
going to
What
be
was
their
that?
excuse.
What was that about?
The thing is, though, that you can actually see them hand it off, and there's an orc just watching it happen in full view. There's nothing.
It's like
So I don't even know who was meant to be distracting.
If we had some parodies with balls, you know, you'd make fun of that scene and have Dr. Evil be like, "Did you just pass something to her?" No.
No.
It's like, looks like you just passed something.
I think this is the true one. She's Welsh, so the smell would be powerful.
Overwhelming.
You smell like orc, don't you?
You can blend him with Eddie smells.
Yeah. Oh man, it was the scene as well where, because I know Snarky's watching this, wondering what the fuck we're talking about. Orcs are meant to be like
I'm enjoying the show just like everybody else.
Well, I want to at least give some context for what we're saying. So orcs are like the most evil fucking thing that exists in the world of the Lord of the Rings. Like they exist purely to kill and destroy and burn and whatever. And like if there's no humans or elves around to kill, they'll just kill each other. They love it. But in this, now they want to settle down and start families and it's like just live a peaceful life. There's even a scene where in I think episode 3, you get to see an orc father like holding his orc wife with this horrible fucking monster orc baby. Like, I just want to protect them. And in this, like he even says to his commander, like, "Father, you told us you loved us," when they have to go into battle. What is this?
Well, it's 2024. We're not allowed to villainize anything or anyone anymore. So
I think
it is
what
weird,
comes
though.
down to.
Because he does seem to be the only orc. They specifically showed when Adar was like calling them to battle, there was a guy who was eating. It was probably like Alf or something. He just immediately dropped all his food and ran. There was other people that were really excited, and this one guy stayed back. They keep drawing attention to him as if, you know, he's going to overthrow Adar or something in the finale, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I remember.
Have some
that.
respect, Disparu. That is Glug. That is a named
I
character.
didn't know he had a name, actually.
That is respect
Glug.
Glug. Glug. I'm not even kidding. It's called Glug.
It's like Alron's horse. This guy, we only ever saw it in the first episode in the intro, and then they tried to have like a Witcher moment when it died. It's like, oh, this is really upsetting. I've never seen you on a horse. You ran across the world twice on barefoot. It's like,
You know
that's how
what,
much you care about the horse.
You know what I legit expected to happen in that scene? Because he's got Galadriel's ring. I thought, because we know the ring can heal people, like fucking random doughboy who gets shot by an arrow, like it just makes that go away. I thought he's going to use that to heal the horse. Like literally, it's right there. Everything's set up, and then he's like, "Oh, well, guess you're dead now," and then moves on. Like, what are we supposed to even feel about that? We've never even seen any of this before. He's just sad that the horse died, I guess. And then he puts the orc on the catapult and then launches it against the city, which is nice.
There's no emotional tissue.
We should have seen him killing an elf with that.
These guys, that's the problem. Sorry, Disparu, go on.
No, if you're going to fire a catapult, I wanted to see the catapult like hit a guy off the top of the wall. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have done that.
He should have fucking hit Celebrimbor for like the 5th time that episode. Like knocked him off just as he's leaving the tower again.
It's like when the troll, when the troll lobbed a human at Arendelle. If you're going to die in an episode, get killed by a flying man thrown by a troll. That is way better than dying to a dart.
I was starting to wonder about how much, you know, his room is filled with bullshit, Celebrimbor, from like the different, bombardments and stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
poor Sauron trying to change the illusion all the time to account for that. It's like a big old boulder falls in. He's like, oh no, that's just and he just spawns an elf there. It's like, don't walk there. They're really fat. Don't worry about
What
it.
what if one had hit him? Or like fallen.
Well, that would have been
bricks and
GG,
shit?
wouldn't it? That would be over.
Yeah.
Very lucky it didn't.
Oh, yeah. I kind of just hate what they've done with this. And yeah, like they do that whole like I need to deliver a big dramatic speech, so the whole battle's just gonna kind of stop for the next 5 minutes while I do it, and nothing
That was
will
really weird, that scene, because they basically all the background noise just stopped, and then at another moment they brought it up, and then they took it down again, and I was like, "What's going on here? Are the sound department having a fight in the edit room? What's happening here?"
I thought the editors were having a
and
fight
it goes on
in general.
forever.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
like think about Boromir's final line in Lord of the Rings, where it's like "my captain, my king," and that's it. It's like, oh, it's over within 30 seconds.
they were trying to emulate Sam's speech from the end of the Two Towers. Tonally, they were going for exactly that. I mean, you could cherry pick about 7 moments from this episode that they were lifting off the original trilogy, and that was one of them. And they had that whole how can the world go back to the way it was after so much has happened. That it's really emotional speech, and it just didn't land the same. I think the actor's a perfectly fine actor, but we just haven't had the investment to get there. So when they're delivering these big impactful moments, there is no impact. That's the problem.
Well, they're having to say like the most terrible lines as well. It's like, there's something stronger than strength, and that is light. And when light exists, darkness goes away because the light is there to shine a light on the darkness. And like, no one's fucking Daniel Day-Lewis could deliver that and make it sound good.
You need that character to be like, well, strength's pretty strong though.
Look who it's coming from. By this point, you have seen Celebrimbor multiple times have Sauron go, no, we shouldn't be making the rings. He's like, I'm going to make them. And in this, he knows now that those rings are made with Sauron's blood. Literally as evil as you can possibly get. And he voluntarily finishes them. The only way you should finish them is when he goes, well, if you give them to me, I'll save the city. And he didn't have any intention of giving him the rings. He made them anyway. And then just before that speech, gives them to Galadriel, doesn't tell her that they've got Sauron's blood in them and they're evil rings and she needs to destroy them. So when he's doing this speech,
that's revenge because she didn't tell him that was Sauron.
I did think that. But it's like once you've got that guy who is now evil by any definition because he's deliberately made the rings and sent them into the world, he can't give a speech about light and darkness and strength. Because he's been destroyed as a character.
Dude.
Yeah, it's a bit hypocritical.
Sometimes I watch this show and my brain wanders off and then forgets whose show I'm watching. I'm like, something clever might happen. So when he comes down with the thumb off and he's talking to Galadriel, I think, because I was watching with Pring and he was like, oh, Galadriel's going to be Sauron, right? That's how this will play out. It's like going to be a trick. And like Celebrimbor even makes reference to it. And then I was like, oh no, it'll be that Celebrimbor is Sauron handing the rings to Galadriel, saying, oh no, these, keep these safe. These are really important. These are. And it's like, oh, but it's a trick because, of course, Celebrimbor would never give the rings to her because they're fucking evil. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, Sauron is up in the tower yelling. He's going, no!
He's looking in boxes for rings and stuff. And then when Celebrimbor goes, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to delay him. What's the first thing he says? The rings aren't in here. It's like, 10 miles away by now. It's like, no, tell him they're in here. I've hidden them. You're never going to find them.
It's so fucking dumb. Why did he say like, oh, there are places in this room even you don't know about, as opposed to not currently here.
Also, you've cornered like probably the most dangerous thing that exists on the entire face of the earth, right? The most dangerous entity, right? And you take 6 guys with you with swords and go, you're under arrest.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And then they just point their swords at him. It's like, what the fuck do you think he's going to do? He's going to retaliate. And he just like snaps his fingers and they all just stab each other. And then he just walks off.
Drinky, you know what it reminds me of? It's that moment in The Dark Knight where he says, you think Bruce Wayne is Batman? He's like, yes. And he's like, so you think the most powerful like billionaire ever is a secret vigilante who beats people to a pulp at night, and you want to blackmail this person? And the guy's like, oh, and like backs off. It feels like that. It's like, you 6 with swords are going to capture Sauron, the dark
Maybe
wizard.
they saw episode 1.
I think, well, that's
Yeah,
fair.
like,
They stab him with a crown.
if he's in there, if he's in that tower, like, okay, collapse the fucking tower around him. Like, bring like 1,000 tons of stone down on his head and just see how that works. Like, don't try and arrest him. He's not going to go peacefully.
That
Yeah,
line
it's
of that line that sets up those guys as well. That's lifted from the Two Towers. It's like, he stands alone and one of them steps forward and goes, "He's not alone." That's the same moment with Gandalf at the top of the hill, looking down on Helm's Deep. He stands alone and he's not alone. And,
Those soldiers were evil as well. They were like calling Sauron Lord of the Tower literally 30 seconds before they're like, we're going to go and fight Sauron now, just because Galadriel went in and went, no, he's the leader.
Dude,
None
those
of it makes sense.
Those elves, I was waiting for them to switch again when they go up to the tower and Anatar is like, "You guys work for me," and they'd probably be like,
It's like, actually, we were triple agents.
Yeah. You know what? I think Galadriel's actually full of shit. Yeah, we work for you. Did anyone else laugh their ass off when the lady got thrown off the building?
Oh yeah, that was my favorite part. That was amazing.
My favorite element of it was the orcs looking up and being like, "You dropped a lady." Like,
guess we better just kill her then.
I go, if it's cool with you guys, we're just gonna.
It's another character though that, like, I guess in a better show you would really feel sad that she got killed. Like,
No,
would you
she's
be
been evil the entire time as well. She's the one that let Sauron in because he was cold and hurt his back.
Well,
Like,
I can't remember her name. I don't really know anything about her. Apparently, she had the hots for Sauron a little bit, and then she just
everyone
died.
has,
Yeah.
if we
including Celebrimbor.
Are you a fan of the shipping? Because like they are shipping the shit out of this show.
I've been
cared
shipping
about
everybody in this episode. I'm not, I just
we
roll
cared
with it.
about her earlier on, and we got invested in her, and they'd had a bit of not loads of scenes, but just a couple of scenes with her, and say episode 1 where we really established who she was and her value and all of that. Instead of one line, you might care about her when she gets corrupted. You might be rooting for her to come back to the other side. You'd be upset when she gets killed. None of that happens because we don't care about her. She's just arrogant and annoying, and immediately becomes, corrupted. We just don't believe it. It just all happens too fast.
I want to know why the jeweler had like power over the town guard and stuff. She was in every single military meeting. The only thing she did is like an apprentice jeweler up in a tower somewhere, and she was giving orders to people when Celebrimbor wasn't there.
Oh, she did a day course in military tactics.
Everyone's giving orders that mean nothing. Like at one point, Elrond is shouting, "Defend the city." Well, thanks, man. Like I didn't know why I was here otherwise, so I'm glad you told me that. Like it's a battle. Of course, we're here to defend the city. That's literally the only thing that's going on.
Yeah, I know. There's never a sense of really how big the Orc army is, as opposed to how many defenders there are. There's no line that we stand at but 1,000. They must be tenfold or something like that to just give us an idea of what the actual odds are. It's just there's more guys over there in the trees, but we're behind a big wall and we've got loads of weapons. Yeah, but they outnumber us lots. How can
the other thing in the movies, the Elven army were clearly a cut above everyone else. You could tell by the way they moved. Everything was fluid. Everything worked perfectly together.
Like
all their formations were on point.
Yeah.
In this, they just felt like normal guys. They like had indecision of who they were going to fire at. Everyone was firing all over the place randomly. There was no kind of tactics or strategy. These didn't feel like basically immortal beings which have been practicing their trade for centuries. They were at the peak of everything they could do. They were just like blokes.
I think they were also lacking enough extras as well. Sorry, Drake.
Like this again, it felt small. It felt like a show punching way above its weight, like trying to make the most of a small budget. And it's like you had $1 billion fucking to play with. What more do you want? Peter Jackson did this on like a fraction of that, and those movies looked epic in every sense of the word. Like this just feels, it always feels small, and it's always an example of characters are only going to be as smart as the writers.
Yeah.
And it turns out they're pretty retarded in this case. So
you compare the battle at Helm's Deep to this. When you're watching the battle at Helm's Deep, even if you haven't read the books, you always know where you are. You understand the importance of that wall, the importance of that door, the ramp. You know how hard it is for these people to get up to that section. And then you see the devices that they're going to use to do that. Everything about that battle makes sense, and how the stakes in it constantly change. It looks like the orcs can't get in. Then they blow up a section of the wall. Give us more time. The stakes are constantly raised. Here, it's all over the place. You don't know where the
Yeah.
important section. Okay, they're trying to pull out a few bricks out of one wall, but we never clearly see where that is in relation to the rest of the city or the center area or what that will mean.
Why is no one stopping it? It's
Yeah,
at the wall. It's easy. You're on top of the wall. Lean over. You've got fire arrows. Drop oil over. There's so many things that you could counter.
It's like
a wooden siege machine at a wall.
Not to mention the fact that siege machine would sink into the bed of the river. They would never get it there.
I still don't fucking understand what that thing was doing. It's like
they hammered things into the bricks, and then it there was like an inverse ram, so it was pulling bricks out of the wall.
That just seems really impractically long-winded and stupid.
Because there's a setup for it where he says, "Oh my god, this is where the wall is at its thinnest." I mean, thank God that the orcs had the architectural plans and they knew that. You know,
why did he build a thin wall there in the first place?
Yeah, that was again. I can't help but be like, compare it to Helm's Deep. Every single stupid thing you can trace back to a smart thing in Helm's Deep and be like, "Oh, they copied that badly." It's the same thing every fucking time. Because I assume Shad has had an aneurysm over that whole sequence.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
The whole they took a million years to even start shooting arrows, and then I was like, so what else you got? What's the big defenses of this amazing stronghold? It's pretty much it. So more arrows. In the third act, they start doing the thing where it's like, throw a bundle of stuff and I will shoot it with a fire arrow and it explodes into napalm. I was just like, where
do
was
it on
that?
the siege machine,
Where
though?
was that ages ago? Why weren't you using those on all the machines? And there was do you remember that portion? They cut back to the fight and there's a wall and they're fighting the orcs personally on the wall. There's one ladder. There's one shitty ladder. And I was just you couldn't deal with one ladder?
At one point, they're climbing a stick.
Tree. If you look to the right, there's a tree that they've cut as well. So they've got two.
It's just like Helm's Deep is your template, and you could follow that quite easily. It's like, okay, come in force with the trebuchets providing you cover and fire and a distraction. Then all the ladders go up at the same time in multiple places, so you can't defend everywhere at the same time. Then you breach the wall. Then everyone surges in. Okay, it's easy to follow. Then you understand how the battle's progressing. You understand which side's gaining ground and losing ground. There's something. This is just a bunch of confused fighting in a bunch of different places with a very small number of extras trying to make it look bigger. And you just get no sense of who's winning or losing. It's just boring. And it goes on for so long. It's not even exciting just from seeing violence on screen. It just becomes tedious pretty quickly.
I think in an earlier episode, they established as well that there's about, if you look in the big CGI shot of the city, I think there's about 7 bridges in one shot that go to that city across the river. And now, mysteriously,
did we ever see a bridge in the fight?
There's one that's broken in the background.
There's only one. All we ever see in this battle is one. What about crossing on all the others? I mean, there's 7 of them. You could use the other. You could be attacking from the other sides at the same time. We don't get that big. That's what was missing for me. We don't get that pullback shot showing us, okay, that thing pulling down the wall is over here. These guys are over here. This is happening over here. So you kind of get a sense of where everything is in relation to each other. You never get that wide shot or that overview head CGI shot. Even if it would have looked a bit naff, at least it would have given you a map of the battle. The geography.
I don't think you would have known, because there's no front lines. That's a problem. So you should have the front line of the wall, and they're attacking the wall. But now, with Elrond coming in with horses, which for some reason he decided to ride into a forest. I still don't know why. They sweep in, and then it was like they spread over the entire battlefield just to have one-on-one fights with people. So even if you had an overhead shot, I think you would just see a mass of people fighting randomly without training kind of thing.
But they could have done that shot as the cavalry arrived into the river, or I don't know, just to give us a sense of what's where. But it's
couldn't track it at all.
They needed,
hated the editing.
Yeah.
What they needed was the elf army to be the kind of elite troops, and them just forming up and marching forward and literally just scything down orcs by the masses, and the orcs can't penetrate the thing, just to show the difference in skill. Then you can have a smaller number of elite guards versus a massive horde of orcs, and you can showcase the difference in skill. Instead, it's just the orcs seem to be 1v1ing elves all the time.
When they show Elrond just go kill, 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 kill. I'm sitting there so the elves lost somehow to the orcs. You want me to believe that? And then you get that goofy shit with the girl who gets shot with 1,000,000 arrows, and I was just like, "Is this how it works? You guys just randomly get killed, and that's."
I have never seen an explosion the size of what her arrow did to that thing.
Yeah.
That was like C4 levels of.
Yeah,
boom.
I
What
don't
did she shoot? What did she shoot?
I think it was an
Because-
oil pot.
But why was there an oil pot on a battering ram?
I don't know.
Yeah, is that the fuel for the battering ram or something? It's like that was the cauldron with the thing they buried into the wall in Helm's Deep, and they've got one of them. If that's so inflammable, why don't you put it chuck it into the city or do something with it to set the city on fire? What's it doing sitting there?
It gets so cynical that they have a death scene, and I feel like they probably at the time were like, we should probably set this up. Can we film a
They
scene?
shoot her again.
Can we film a scene where they have her and Elrond just talk about how, hey, we're gonna make it, and you know what?
Yeah.
There's always one shot that'll count or something. Anyway,
As soon as I saw her, I was trying to remember because they heavily featured her. Hang on, have I missed a scene in an earlier episode where I zoned out that they set up her character and maybe I just
She
missed
was
it?
with Galadriel.
It did kind of make me laugh, that moment of like, because have you got any fire arrows left? Yeah, I've got one. I just need one clear shot. It's like, okay, I'm gonna fight my way through so that you can take the shot. And then he fights his way through, turns around to look at her, and she just gets fucking turned into a pincushion. That's actually quite funny. Like, and then he has to maybe come up with his own solution later. And it's like, no, she's not dead though. She just gets up Boromir style. And
she was a Star Trek red shirt of the elves, basically.
well, yeah, but it's like she sort of twitched and jerked like she'd been shot like 15 times, but then there only seemed to be like one arrow sticking out of her. And then
There were way. They did have loads of arrows because
there were four at different
see them.
angles.
Yeah,
Right.
there was like I think it was probably more than that.
But then it's
and
like,
then
did she pull one of them out of her body to then fire it?
Yeah, and then set
Did
it
she?
on
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah,
I think one of them
because it's
came
supposed
from
to
the
be
wall.
a fire arrow she used.
she pulls one out. I'm almost certain, unless it's out of
Oh.
a quiver. But I thought it was.
No,
pulling
I
it out
thought
of
it was
her
a quiver because she had one arrow left in her
I
quiver.
thought it was. I'd have to check, but the
Because
big
she
thing I
kind of
found,
like
her body.
pulled
I
it
thought
and she twitched like she got it, like she'd pulled it out of her own body, like
we have
Yeah,
to
because
check.
and then fired it.
It would have needed
what
to
I
have been a
was-
fire arrow.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
what I was finding so funny about it was the notion that it's like a inverse of Helm's Deep, but they didn't realize where she's coming to blow up their amazing siege engine, and then she's like preparing her arrows. You just see the orcs like go their equivalent of Legolas.
Bring her
like,
down.
Bring her down. Bring her down. All the
Yeah.
orcs start shooting arrows,
Why
trying to
won't
get
you
it.
die?
To be the last guy though, because after she blows up the entire thing, she kind of looks round and looks pleased, and then just gets shot again. I think
Yeah.
there's one guy at the end who's like, "No, you."
I love it. Yeah, I like the
specifically."
idea that there's one orc archer who's just got this serious fucking grudge against her. Like, I'm not letting you get out of here.
I think
You
it's an
killed
elf
Dave.
ex-boyfriend on the wall who's got a grudge with her, and he's actually taking her out because it looks like the arrows that hit her in the back come from the wall. So I think it's an elf
Yeah.
taking her
Yeah.
out.
Friendly
Doesn't
fire.
like her. She's a bit up herself. Well, I'm going to bring her down. I'm not having her save the day. Let's take her
I
out.
was expecting Sauron to have been involved in that because a lot of them did, like the last one especially, did look as if it came from the direction of the wall. Because otherwise, you have to end up in a situation where there's literally 360 degrees of orc archers that all just chose her at that second independently, which is even more wild than just going Sauron did it.
all from different directions. No setup for it whatsoever.
Like, why are archers on the battlefield rather than at the back anyway?
Yeah, it just was.
So, in other words, it's a shit show.
You would
and it's-
expect, with
we're
how
almost
shit
at
Rings of
the
Power
end.
is, if she was shot by an orc, it would cut to the orc and he'd be like, "That's for killing Glumbo, my son." Like that's how bad it's gotten.
Yeah, I actually thought, I mean, my false expectations, but I was thinking, okay, this has been really rocky, but maybe we're going to get a really cool battle at the end of this. And
Oh,
actually,
you optimistic man, you.
I know, I try to be optimistic, but what we got is one of the most embarrassingly edited and staged battle sequences in television history. I'll say it now, and it should have been amazing. It should have,
This was going to be their big set piece of the series. This was going to be the episode that like really, it was a crowd pleaser, big battle, big set piece. Everyone was
Justified
going
the
to come
budget.
away. Yeah, everyone was supposed to come away buzzing from this, and ultimately, it's like the biggest letdown you could expect. Just hand-handed.
Has anyone got any kids watching this? Are they like loving it? Has anyone got any?
Isn't that child abuse?
I wouldn't force a kid to watch this. Like, they're not going to get anything out of this.
Is there a young audience of young adults that are really into this show? I'm not seeing the posts about it.
I don't know what the audience is.
Media.
Much like Agatha, I don't know who's meant to be actually into this. People who like Lord of the Rings aren't going to like it, and I don't know. Maybe it's for a modern audience. Not sure.
Dude, season 3 is going to do so well.
Season 3 is going to have a budget of like $50 an episode. I guarantee you. Like
It's
to scale it to the audience. I don't know, man.
Just Galadriel complaining at Elrond for an hour. It was all in the entire episode.
Yeah. It would just be therapy sessions, like sitting at a table, just like talking. You know, Morford Clark acting the shit out of it. Speaking of great actors, actually, I've been hearing a lot about the Ray movie. And apparently it's been put on hold until at least 2025, which is, I think, probably the first step towards cancelling it. Like, at first it's put on hold, then it's usually shelved, then it's delayed indefinitely, and then it's cancelled.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings about that.
Yeah.
I think you're all I'm going to say is I think you're on the right track there.
It's what they do. It's always done by degrees with movies. They never just immediately shit can them. They have to just prep people and say, like, this is...
we can all look forward to the Mando and Grogu movie. That's going ahead, right?
Yeah. But with this, she was apparently asked about like the criticism that her character Rey has received from portions of the fandom. You know, the toxic ones, obviously, because nobody in their right mind would criticize Rey. But she said, apparently, I cannot change the way that some men see women. And basically say she doesn't accept any criticism of the character, which I thought was kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure there's a fair proportion of women out there who don't like Rey either as a character, but I guess they don't count anymore. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we don't exist. We don't matter. And never mind the fact that everybody loves Princess Leia.
Well, I've been reliably informed that women actually just think and act as a monolith, and that you're all somehow linked to each other. Wow. So you all have the same opinions on everything. So clearly, like, if one likes them, then they all do. So
yeah, apparently I'm a factory defect. So take that as you will.
Long may that continue. But yeah,
no, but it's such a bad road to go down, I suppose, with this kind of criticism, because as far as I'm aware, Daisy Ridley's kind of stayed out of this stuff up until now. Basically, she's not really spoken up about it. She's not tried to blame the fans for not liking Rey or for her not being popular or whatnot. And this seems to be the first time that they've changed course with it. And it just seems like, oh, this is the last thing you want to be doing right now. Because people, as far as I know, don't have a problem with Daisy Ridley. They just don't like the character that she played.
No, she's quite well liked in the industry. You know, lots of really lovely reports of her on set. Nice to the crew. You know, don't talk down to people. Things like that. So I always hear very pleasant things being said about her. Just wish she would get better scripts.
The issue is, you were talking earlier about how there's like a sludge pipe that needs to be cleared before new stuff comes in. But the same people which are making that stuff are the same people that like the current stuff. That only realized it was bad when they were hammered repeatedly by the audience going, no, under no circumstances will we watch this. You will lose money. And so they were forced into it. And it's like, without changing the people at the top, and I mean, basically everybody, because it is more of an ideology than like talent at this point, the reason why people have been hired, I don't see how you can turn it around. And I think you end up with people like Daisy Ridley. If you're in a circle of enough people repeating the same things over time, you will internalize that, and so she will find herself repeating what she's heard by other people in the industry. If it's the done thing to attack men that didn't like your movie, then eventually you're going to go, well, everyone else is doing it. That must be the right answer.
Yeah, that's a good. There's a good parallel there to the post office scandal, where the people out there are not changing their attitude, and they still
I need to watch that show. Yeah.
You do. You've got to watch it. It's unbelievable, and they need to change the whole culture there. And that's exactly the same with this IP. We're never going to get good Star Wars content unless we get a completely fresh team in, led by somebody quite passionate who's got a good track record of writing, showrunner, whatever that may be. Let them do their thing. Let them create new characters in that universe, completely new stuff, and let's see something new and interesting. We've had some good stabs at that, but we just haven't had that one that's really taken a lot of risks and given us something of quality. But it could happen one day, maybe.
The baseline should be, if you attack the
Sorry,
audience,
go
you should
ahead.
be immediately fired. That shouldn't be allowed under any kind of regime.
You know, go ahead, Snarky.
Sorry. I was just going to say, do y'all ever think like that they hire women and minorities to basically be shields to their own shitty content? Because you consider the fact that the sequel trilogy would have been terrible had they hired a man to be Rey's character, because the character just isn't well written. The trilogy is not good. Finn is not a problem because he's black. Finn is a problem because he had sort of the seed of an interesting arc at the beginning, and then they didn't let him do it. And so they continuously throw, like, the girl that played Rose Tico. There's nothing wrong with her as a person. The character was just lackluster, as was that entire casino scene. And I don't know if that was episode 8 or 9. It doesn't matter anymore. But you consider the fact that they continue to put minorities and women and all these people that are, you know, typically needing to be protected from the media, right, into these shitty ass roles and movies and positions, so that way when they make garbage, they can say, well, no, you attacked it because there's minorities. Like, it almost feels like they're directly throwing people to the wolves for no reason and then giving them the worst media training so that they can continue to attack the audience for money. It's incredible.
The theory behind it is that they do fan baiting, where they'll essentially start a new project and they'll either make it the most like diverse, ethnically, sexually, pro LGBTQ, whatever production imaginable, or they'll race or gender swap existing characters, right, and make a real point of letting everyone know that they've done that. And when there's an inevitable backlash against it, like, hey, how come this character has suddenly become like a black lesbian, you know, paraplegic or whatever, then they can say, well, clearly the fans are just sexist or toxic or whatever, and that's the reason why this project wasn't successful, because there were so many bigots out there who just couldn't accept it. Not because the script was terrible, the acting was terrible, the direction was terrible, any of that stuff. That's what they do now. It becomes like, as far as I know, it's like almost standard practice within the industry now. It becomes, exactly as you said, a convenient shield to protect you from any kind of criticism.
I think it's also, though, the idea, like, if the foundation of the idea is equality, then basically they think everybody's the same. But they think that the people that are already there got there because of their circumstance. They were privileged in some way. So you drag them down and you have to lift up other people. But if they were there because they deserve to be, well, now you're dragging down quality people and replacing them with inept people that shouldn't be there. And that's not just actors. That's throughout the entire industry. So everything becomes incompetent. The script writing becomes incompetent. So does the wardrobe. So does the art. So does the lighting. You put those at every single degree all the way down, even managing things. So the budgets skyrocket because all the project managers and everything now can't do the job to the same quality that would have been done before. And it literally comes down to, if you don't hire the best people for the job for everything collapses. And so it looks like putting these people into cast members are shields, but that's just kind of what they have done at the entire range all the way down. And you've just replaced people that earned their positions with people that never did. And so they don't have the experience, even if they do have the capacity to actually do it to the same degree.
Can I pick up on that, Drinker? There's a friend of mine, I can't say too much details about this, they're a producer. They've currently done season 1 of a show. They're doing season 2 at the moment. It was supposed to shoot this year. It's a co-production between 3 big companies. I'll tell you guys who after. And it's 6 half-hour scripts, right? Season 2, 6 half-hour scripts, okay? Mm-hmm. If I had a specific brief, I could write those in 2 weeks, no problem. And, you know, you get notes and you do rewrites, okay? They've got a writer's team on this thing. And, of course, you've got the main guy. And trust me, he is pulling his hair out, the guy who's behind this show, because he's being pulled all over the place. He's getting different notes from all of the 3 companies. They went into prep in April. It's now nearly the end of September. They don't have a single script of those 6 scripts ready to go.
So what have they been doing all this time?
They don't have an agreed storyline because no one can agree from the 3 different companies where it should go. I mean, at the very least, the writers' team should just be banging out different drafts anyway. Okay, well, let's do one for that idea. Let's do one for this idea. It doesn't take that long to write 30 pages. Well, you know, if you've got the acquired skill sets and you've been writing in the industry.
Not George R.R. Martin.
No, but I mean, this team, the main guy is a great guy, and he's got a really good vision for the show. He's being pulled about all over the place. The writing team that they've got to work with, Phil, tick all the things that Disparu just mentioned. So that is an example of what's going on in a show right now, and that's the kind of problems they're having. And that's not.
I mean, the writer in me actually hates the idea of a writer's room. Like, I know it's industry standard at this point, but it's like the idea of, like, I've got an idea for how I want this story to play out, and I now have to get into a room with like 8 other people with their own ideas about the characters. They've got their own agendas they want to push. They've got their own things that they care about. And I have to work with all of them now to try and hash out some kind of semi-coherent story at the end of it. I would fucking tear my eyeballs out, like, having to deal with that, because it just sounds horrible.
I've been there.
You can't get a cohesive story with that many people involved in it. And, you know, part of the writer's strikes last year was getting even more writers in the writer's room. Why? Too many cooks truly do spoil the broth. I don't get it. I'd rather have one person who has a really strong creative vision than like 8 idiots that are just hired there to make up the numbers.
That is a gender difference in how people prefer to work. Men are often more solo-based, whereas women are far more social. And I think the original idea would have probably come from like comedies, which generally had more writers' room and things. But there was an interview for She-Hulk, which was very insightful of how She-Hulk ended out how it did, because they basically said they talk to each other and they mine each other's lives for ideas of what to put in the show, which is why everything becomes self-insert, which is probably how Agatha ended up being made. And I think when you have writers' rooms, normally in a company structure, you'd have a hierarchy, so you have a CEO going down, everyone tells each other the boss. But like in your example, where you had 3 different groups all colliding, it's a far more flat structure. It's a far more equal structure. And so because there's nobody who can give anyone orders, you just can't agree on anything because you all have different ideas and things. I think what we are witnessing is there's literally, with both men and women coming into the workforce, you have different ideas and different natural working strategies that they use. And it's literally, some people work best in one, some people work best in the other. And I don't think they mix. And it might be better to separate them off so that certain properties made for one works for the others, whereas more of a male property would probably work best with one writer writing one thing because he knows what he does, he has the vision, and he can literally put the values into it that he wants, compared to like a more social kind of TV series based around specific people's lives and feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I guess you write based on your life experiences to a degree, at least. So I don't know, if I was going to write a fucking sitcom about like a bunch of professional women working in New York or whatever, I would probably want women to be the writer team on that. They're going to have the experience and they're going to have the right mindset for it. By the same token, if I was writing a story about a bunch of special forces guys set on a mission into Afghanistan, probably going to want guys for that, especially guys with some kind of like military experience at least, or you know, some kind of background in that they can draw from to help me formulate that. But yeah, when you try and mix all these people together who come at it from completely different directions, I think what you're going to end up with at best is going to be a heavily diluted product where it's just a bunch of different ideas colliding together that don't really mesh, and you're trying to make everyone happy. And like when you try to do that, it's going to be so watered down that I don't think you're going to get a cohesive story out of it. And I don't know
I
if
think
this
that's
is
what Rings of Power is. When you said you didn't know who the audience is, because I think it's meant to be for everybody. I think they spent so much money. They tried to literally get the widest, broadest audience they can.
Yeah.
Which misses everybody.
Yeah, I agree. That's what's happened there for sure. And landing on no one, sadly. I don't know a single person that is rooting for the show. Some people are saying, "Oh yeah, it's okay," but you know, no one's kind of contacting me saying, "Oh yeah, if you've seen the
shippers are into it."
Yeah, I would have loads of sympathy for if it was done on limited resources. In which case, you know, it's the underdog. You're going to root for them a little bit. Like maybe we just had really tight budget. We couldn't afford the best writers, but like, man, we're super passionate about this project or this world. But it's the exact inverse of that. It's like you've got all the resources in the world. You've essentially got the rights to one of the biggest IPs ever, at least in the fantasy genre. But you don't really seem to care that much about it. It's more just like you see this as your little personal playground, and you get to indulge your hobbies or your fantasies within this world, and that's all it is. And so, as you say, there's no reason to root for it. I don't want this show to succeed particularly because it's gotten every advantage imaginable and still fucked up. So it doesn't deserve to succeed now.
I think everyone agrees.
Silence in the room.
I don't know how else to face
camera.
But I think there's so much to be said for, like, I've got so much sympathy for movies that are like just low budget. Like they tried their heart out to make this, and like most of the shortcomings are just because they couldn't get very good actors, or they couldn't get like the special effects shots that they needed or whatever. But man, I can tell that they tried hard with this. That's something, and you almost want them to succeed. Maybe it's just human psychology or whatever. But when you have the big dog that's got everything that they could ask for, all the advantages, and still fail because they just fundamentally don't really care that much about it, then that's when you turn against them, because they don't deserve to do well.
Drinker, you saw that trailer for my buddy's film, the one he shot in lockdown, for like 40 grand, 40,000.
Yeah, it looks good.
The cast, it was a thriller, a cast of 3. It's very like Blood Simple, that kind of thing. And you look at the trailer for that, and honestly, it looks like a small film, but it looks like a £2 million movie. And the guy was really inventive, and he made that money go really far, and it's done really well on the film festival circuit. I want that film to succeed, and it is a good movie. It's a good movie for what it is. You know, tight little thriller, 3-hander essentially, with a couple of other roles here and there. Really well acted as well. I mean, there's only one named cast member in it. Done a really amazing job. Why are Netflix not going out there, and Amazon not going out there and looking at those filmmakers? There's dozens of them, hundreds of them across the world, looking at the little films they've done for that kind of money. Why are they not finding these people and going, hey, listen, we're going to give you a budget of $2 million to make a film. Pitch us some ideas. What are you going to make us for that? We've seen what you can do with 50K. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? That's right. Matthew sent Gord King the link to watch it. Yeah. And for any YouTubers, if you want to see it, Matthew will send you a link to watch it so you can see for yourself. But why aren't they doing that?
Well, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about when we found out how much the Acolyte really cost, $230 million. And you're saying that, you know, these guys were able to produce a nice, like, tightly scripted little thriller for like 50K, like nothing, essentially. Take that $230 million that you sharted out on this nonsense show, right? And then split it 230 ways, right? So give $1 million to like a whole bunch of like producers or, you know, filmmakers or whatever. You're going to get something pretty good out of all that. If you've got 230 opportunities to hit the bullseye, something's bound to land. And you'd be way better doing that than producing something like The Acolyte or Rings of Power or Agatha All Along. You know, that's what pisses me off. Like the amount of opportunities and money that gets wasted on stuff like this that doesn't deserve it, versus all these like little filmmakers or whatever that have great ideas or great passion for what they're doing. They just don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, and there's so many
it's a crazy
of them
system
out there. There's so many of them out there. They're always going on about how they're there to find these people. They're looking for talent, and that's all bullshit, man. Because if they were, they would be supporting those people that have already grafted for years, making films on their own with nothing but the resources from their mates and the people that they can get. You know, I shot my second feature in Greece for 40 grand, and we got all the cheese and all the petrol for free. We were eating cheese for 2 weeks, you know, and Jason Fleming paid for his own flight and came over and did us 2 days and went back again. You know, you're doing it with nothing. We got all our hotels for free thanks to the generosity of the Greek people. This is the sort of passionate kind of stuff that these people should be looking for. And I could name dozens of other people doing exactly the same thing, and they never get any kudos. They never get any support. They never get any support from any of the grants that say they're there to help exactly those kinds of people, but they don't. You know who does get the help? The people that have got a mate, or the people that are with the best agents, who are already being targeted to go up because they came through the right school, or they know the right people, or they're already in touch with those producers who are going to get them a big paycheck because they're going to get a big chunk of that money as well. It's not about finding the talent. It's all about this certain level of people making as much money as they can with as little effort as possible. And that's unfortunately the truth with a big chunk of our industry right now. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit annoyed now, so I'll shut up.
But Netflix is kind of discovering talent. It's just abroad, basically. They keep doubling down in things like the Korean market, which have produced loads of D&D. Even their average stuff is way better than most of the best stuff that the West kind of stuff puts out at this point. And I do wonder kind of how much you get hamstrung. Like, could those same people, if they then started to obey Netflix rules or whatever, and then they get them all the little cooks coming in going, no, you've got to change this, and you've got to have this, and you've got to put this in your story, whether they'd still be able to make something quality? Because I don't think that the foreign industries have the same like hangouts, because they just make it and then they sell it to Netflix. So Netflix doesn't really have any input.
I always get the impression as well with like the Korean shows or like Chinese shows or Japanese or whatever. There's an element of like that passion is still there, that earnestness to tell a good story without that kind of world weary, pessimistic narcissism or nihilism. Sorry, that we're really we're weighed down with over here. I think we talked about this once a few weeks back, and Platoon summed it up nicely by saying like we've become kind of bored of ourselves over here in the West when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to like aspirational stories of heroes and inspiring ideas and stuff. It all has to be counterbalanced by like this like self-deprecating humor, like, oh, someone's trying to do something heroic, isn't that kind of funny and ironic and silly, and like let's make fun of it a little bit. Why can't you just like have people do awesome things or aspire to doing something great and like actually have it make sense, actually have it mean something because they believe in it? I feel like when you go to like the Eastern studios, they haven't been infested by that weird self-sabotaging pessimism that we suffer from over here. That's probably why their shows do so well. That's why they find such an audience here, because we're starved of it. We really are.
Well, look at even the difference, like Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power. Lord of the Rings there's something in this world worth fighting for. Whereas Rings of Power is, well, no one's actually above reproach. They all make mistakes. Even Galadriel made mistakes sometimes, and actually she had to sign up with Adar, this basically evil character, to kind of defeat evil itself.
The orcs are actually like, sympathetic, and they're just getting manipulated into doing this, and they just want to live a peaceful life. Or even fucking the Acolyte, where it's like, the Jedi are actually kind of evil, and they steal children from their parents and stuff. Why do you have to do this all the time? Like this is like a disease amongst entertainment, and it really is. It spreads like a virus, just undermining everything that underpins a good story.
I was watching a video.
Denying. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was almost gonna say it's almost like objectively denying human nature, because it was almost like the hero's journey was at the forefront of every single thing, right? I mean, that's literally Luke Skywalker's story, and lately everything that comes out is deliberately like, remember, everybody's evil. This guy's not as good as you think he is. Even the bad guys, like, they're not, they're all being, I don't know, exploited or whatever. And it's come to a thing where it's really hard to find good stories anymore, because it's almost as if society has just decided to not have them. Like, nobody is 100% good, nobody is 100% bad, and you can't look inward for anything. You also can't put anybody on a pedestal. It's almost like narcissism and just innate cruelty and disdain for anything that could be a glimmer of hope has just disappeared. And I'm kind of a cynic, but it really has just, I don't want to use the word because it's childish, but it's gotten icky. Like, nobody is writing anything with any real gravitas to it, because they've lost the desire to do so.
I think there's pressure put on writers to say you just like turned in a script for a TV show and the hero was just like a straight up traditional hero who tries their best and like rises to the occasion and just wants to do something good. And there's kind of an inspiring message, I suppose, about like improving yourself or whatever. I think any studio executive would look at that now and say, oh, you know, that's so old fashioned. Like, we need to like make it more edgy. We need to make it darker. We need to make it more morally complex. That's what I think they would give in terms of feedback. And they would essentially force you to make it this like nihilistic, bleak, hopeless sludge that we get today.
Do you remember Avengers 2012 when they're bringing Cap into the story and he says,
yes,
I'm not sure, like I'm cut out for this in terms of like I'm pretty old fashioned when it comes to all this sort of thing. And then Coulson says, I think we could use some old fashioned right now.
Yeah,
it's that was 2012.
That was 12 years ago. We've really gone down the shitter.
Yeah, and that movie back then believed in it. Like, it did emphasize that idea of like that old-fashioned World War II heroism that I guess Cap represents actually does have a place in the world, especially in a world that's going to rapidly change and get exposed to God knows what. That means something.
Several things in the earlier phases, I think Avengers has aged really well. If on rewatch, it's kind of like crazy to watch it, you know. Well, no, it was great at the time too. I just mean that like a lot of things, you know, like Endgame, that
I hated Endgame at the time as well. After Endgame, I actually went back and watched Infinity War because I wondered if my feelings had changed, like my tastes. I'm like, no, this is still great.
Infinity War, yeah. Well, with Endgame, I guess the interesting commentary is just the world adored it, and the world has since been like, Endgame wasn't, you know, it's aged as badly as like Multiverse of Madness. That aged really badly as well for a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know.
I think it worked at the time. It worked with that superficial, like giving people the things that they hope to see. Like they wanted, you know, Cap and Tony and Thor to go up against Thanos and kick his ass and like, you know, give people heroic deaths and stuff. And superficially, it achieved all of those things. It's only when you go away and leave the cinema and like you're on that drive home when you start picking apart the story and being like, wait a minute, that didn't really make any sense. And whoa, that was super fucking convenient that happened at that moment. And that's when it falls apart. But yeah, it got people initially just because they were so invested in it and they wanted that big epic blowout finish to everything. And it kind of gave them that.
Isn't it funny how we're all kind of desperate for that now, though? I'm sorry. I feel like I keep interrupting you.
It's fine. These stories like affect people. I was watching a video the other day. I've tried to find the source. I can't find the source. But he was talking about how there were lifeguards. And when they were hired, there was half the group were told like really sort of heroic stories, being told stories about saving people's lives. And they tracked their progress versus the people that were just given like safety instructions and stuff. The ones that were given the heroic stories, they worked more hours, they signed up for more overtime, and there was less of a turnover rate compared to the other group. So just being told inspirational stories, it affects you. It affects your behavior. And I think if you do have all these stories where everything's equal, rather than like a hierarchy of value, there is a correct way to act and there's a bad way to act, and this is fixed, and so you're either good or bad. The other one is, well, you know, there isn't really good, there isn't really evil. You're not responsible for your actions. It's more your upbringing. You're either born privileged or you're born oppressed. And that you even saw that in Rings of Power. Sauron was literally going, well, actually, it was because Morgoth treated me horribly. That's why I'm acting this way. Like, he couldn't just be evil. He couldn't want to be. No, actually, I had a bad childhood, and that's why I've actually become Satan and trying to rule the earth. When you take away that individual responsibility, it gives people the excuse to do the horrible things. And I think that's what Hollywood is now. I think there are a load of people that don't want to admit that actually what we're doing is pretty awful. And so we're trying to make ourselves feel better. Because it's like that Erickson tweet. If you actually realize that there is a correct way to act and you're not acting that way, you are an arsehole. Like, you are less than somebody that does act good. And that makes you feel bad. And you should feel bad. But instead they have this defense mechanism. It's not me.
Actually, why force people to like confront their own worldviews that might be completely wrong when you can just say, well, everything's justifiable because it's all just a matter of perspective. And that's it. Like, well, anyone can get away with anything. And it's like, well, if you don't distill any values into people and say, well, everything has equal merit, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to do the most selfish, easy thing imaginable every single time because I've got no incentive to do anything else. if that's what you're going to teach me as a kid growing up, and that's my value system, of course. And then you've got an entire society of people that think that way. How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, it's already playing out.
Well, those are also the stories we get. That's basically the story of She-Hulk. She just went around doing whatever she wanted at any time, and it was everyone else's fault.
The thing that pisses me off, especially with modern storytelling, is this drive to recontextualize all the villains. So you're seeing Disney do this especially well. Like, you've got all these prequel stories about whether it's the fucking girl from 101 Dalmatians who wants to skin puppies alive,
Cruella.
like Cruella de Vil. Now it's like, she's this like cool kind of punky rebel who's just misunderstood. You know, you've got like the Wicked, I suppose, was ground zero for this. Like, literally the Wicked Witch of the West. Now it's like, well, she was just mistreated when she was at school and she didn't fit in, but she was like really awesome and people just didn't understand her power. Like, again, like, it's all just recontextualizing so that like there's no villains, there's no heroes, nothing's good or evil. It's all just like a bunch of people doing whatever suits them at the time. I guess that's how we should just all live now. No wonder Rings of Power has like fallen so foul of this. Like, what else was going to happen in this climate if that's the media environment it gets released into? Of course, it's going to be this morally compromised sludge, just like everything else.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you remove the value, like, when you remove those kind of values, you remove any depth. Because if good and evil are basically the same, and no one's really making any decisions, they're just a product of their environment, so you can't really blame them. Well, you've removed all depth from the story. Like, why should you not root for Sauron anymore? Well, like, he's a villain, but, you know, he's just the same as Galadriel. But Galadriel's also an arse because the Lady of Light has now been reduced to wielding a sword, going around complaining at people.
His pitch in season 1 was, "I'll be powerful, you be good, and together we'll be a force for good that's powerful." Or whatever.
And yeah, she kept saying, "I'm so tempted by that."
Because you can absolutely tempt people with the promise of easy solutions, which ultimately takes you down a dark path. I mean, that's all the dark side is in Star Wars. It's like taking the quick and easy road to power, influence, achieving things in life, but you're not building the character that it takes to actually succeed and wield that power wisely. And so inevitably you fall into darkness and evil and whatever else. It's a moral lesson. It's a simple one, but it's very, very effective. Lord of the Rings does the same thing. The One Ring promises you all the power, all your dreams, that everything that you've ever imagined can come true if you just put this ring on, and it will give you the power to do all that. And that's how it ensnares you. It becomes like a drug. It takes even greater strength to take the harder road and try to succeed without it, to succeed on your own merits, and to overcome that power of it. It's a moral lesson. The more difficult road is quite often the one that promises greater rewards in the long term because it builds up a greater strength of character.
How often are we getting that message these days in modern writing?
It's just frustrating because I don't know what it's trying to show anyone. Like, what do you take from anything that people produce now? What's your lesson? There's nothing inspiring in it.
You should be entitled and allowed to have everything from the get-go.
Instant gratification is what you're talking about is instant gratification versus delayed gratification. There is virtue in delayed gratification because you're doing the work now to get a benefit later on, whereas now everything's instant. And so the issue is when you want instant gratification, you generally just are reduced to base desires, which is how you end up with things like shipping, because shipping is an incredibly base desire. You get instant gratification now because you just get with the person. There you go. But it's never going to build anything. You're never going to have a long-term kind of benefit from that kind of thing. So everything's shallow and nothing is kind of long-term pleasurable. You're never going to get satisfied from that, even if it feels good in the instant.
Well, like it goes back to the example we gave earlier when we were talking about Daisy Ridley, addressing the complaints about Rey. The complaint about Rey was that everything's easy for her because she doesn't suffer. She doesn't go through adversity. She doesn't have to struggle to achieve her goals. She just does. It all comes to her easily. She's essentially powerful already, and the struggle is the rest of the world learning to accept how powerful she is. And that doesn't make for a compelling story because it's like there's no struggle there for the protagonist. They just succeed no matter what.
The big twist about her backstory is there is no backstory. Isn't that great?
Well, there's 3 different twists. It depends on the movie.
Yeah.
I don't even remember them, MauLer.
where
I
no
tried
one
to- I tried to
understands
forget
like, what
it.
she's meant to be.
It was when we finally get the truth in the third film. You just sort of look back like, well, wait, but where's their character? Like, who cares who her parents are at this point? That doesn't tell us anything. It's like, oh, was it nobody? Was it people, but they were like low level people, or was it people that have just died, or was it people that are super important? Was it Obi-Wan Kenobi? Was it Luke Skywalker? Was it truly Unkar Palut? Who can say?
I hope it
That
was,
was literally the Doctor Who reveal, though. Her mom was just normal. You're like, sorry?
Wow, okay.
It never
Yeah.
fucking. It
I
wouldn't
would still challenge anyone. Like, describe Rey's personality, not like what she does, not like the challenges that she faces or lack thereof. Like, describe who she actually is. What is she like as a person? You can't do it.
She's a blank
She's
slate.
just, I don't know. She just like tries to help people. Maybe
Relatively
I guess.
friendly and wants to help out. Yeah, that's about it.
It's like a sheet of cardboard or something. There's just nothing to it.
To be
Like,
fair, that's actually better than a lot of them. You know, like that's better than Galadriel. Like, that's better than a lot of like the more narcissistic sort of characters where they don't even realize that's what they're writing. Rey,
Yeah.
maybe this is a virtue of Rey being further back in the timeline, but she was just blank. She's just like, hello, I am character. Here I go on my adventure,
yeah,
and like, nothing interesting happens. But
I mean, I think
like,
that's kind of true of everybody in that trilogy, though.
it is like Finn. What can we say from that? Like, he's just loyal to Rey, I guess.
He was really good at yelling Rey's name for 2.5 movies.
That's essentially it. Like, I don't know what his values are. I don't know what he really cares about because it switches from movie to movie. Same with Poe Dameron. I guess he's like a low quality version of Han Solo because he's like a bit of a rogue, but like none of it really goes anywhere.
We can say he had nice hair. That's it.
It was
True.
lovely hair, yeah.
remember in the third
That's
one where they
the-
like Poe had a dark history of drug running, and it was like, oh
Yeah, and that went nowhere.
Did they
Yeah,
even
well,
did they say that? I don't remember that at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
He's a spice smuggler.
They keep implying it, and then he's got his connections to the underworld and stuff. And it was just like, where did this come from? What's happening? And it's just like, see, he's more interesting than you thought. You're like, okay.
When I got that, I was just like, when they said he's a spice smuggler, I was like, what? Does he like get paprika into different like areas of the galaxy or something? That's all I always picture. I don't know. Yeah, and like whatever on-screen sort of temporary enjoyment you got from, say, characters like Finn and Poe, it was pretty much just down to the actors doing their best with what they had. Like, so I think Oscar Isaac and John Boyega are both good actors, and they can do a lot if they have the right script. But man, they had nothing to work with here.
I think Boyega's been quite vocal about how disappointed he was with the direction that they took.
That's just
his
the whole
character.
world.
Yeah.
And,
Didn't
you know,
Oscar Isaac
they're
say like, "I'll
blatant.
come back if I need a new fucking house or something like that"? That'll be the only reason I come back to Star Wars.
Need that Horizon Infinity pool, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's not going to pay for itself.
yeah. Oh well.
Is this the time where you say, should we do a few super chats?
I think it's probably right. Yeah,
There's
I
a
think we should do
particular
that.
aura that develops around him, and you can see it coming. You're like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
big
I
intake
need
of
to
breath.
limber up for it. It's like, okay, super chats, let's go. Anyway, let me bring up the list here.
He says,
Elsie Le
slurring,
Pen.
slurring.
He says, "Hail Open Bar. Drinker, thanks for playing Space Marine 2. Between that and Rags playing Outlaws yesterday was all kinds of fun. Thoughts on Ghost of Yotai? How do you say it? Yotai? Is it Yotai? I don't know how you say it.
So
Yeah, I kind of hope that they would have continued the story of Ghost of Tsushima because I really liked that game and I wanted to see where the character was going to go next. But like, I guess they're going down a different road with it. But I don't know if they have the same sort of like level of narrative care. The mechanics are good. The fight scenes, the fight choreography, the fight mechanics are really good and stuff. Okay, hopefully it'll be good.
We forgot the Thunderbolts trailer. I probably should mention that.
I don't care about that now. It's like, at this point, I can't even bother getting into
Sorry,
it.
chat. Blame it on me. It's my fault.
Yeah, it'll just get me a copyright strike on the channel or whatever. Anyway, if I try to play it for too much, so yeah. But anyway, yeah, Space Marine 2 is really good fun to play. Pretty much just like turning enemies into big clouds of red mist, and it's great fun. But yeah, I think they've captured the tone and the look and the feel of 40K really well. How's Rags been getting on with Outlaws, MauLer?
I'm pretty sure he's experienced a significant amount of pain, as would anybody playing that game, but simultaneously enjoying making fun of it. Somebody he found recently, and he was like, if ever a compilation is made, you must put this in. He was getting chased by a bunch of people on speeders. I think they were stormtroopers or whatever. And he starts like circling around banthas, who in the game have like no development or physics in any way, shape, or form other than they are blocks that just move, right? They may as well be buildings that are moving. And so he was riding around them. The banthas aren't acknowledged by the AI and the speeders enemies, so they are chasing you as well, and they'll just smash into the banthas and die. And it's just one of the most like, you guys, you just haven't even finished this game. Like, you haven't even come close. There's countless glitches, countless bugs, and Drink has been made aware of several of them.
Oh,
It
I've
is a
seen
game.
some absolutely glorious ones. Yeah,
Quite
You've
a
showed me some good stuff.
memeable game. And yes, he's been having some fun with it.
I just wanted to say as well, Lance,
Yeah,
from
mate.
the Outcast Creative. No,
I'm
it wasn't
here.
really addressed to you. I was just referencing you. But yeah, your channel is getting very close to 4,000 subs.
It
I think
is.
you're only about less than 100 to go.
91 last time I checked.
Now, I'm no expert in mathematics, but we have about 10,000 people watching us now. And if, say, 100 or so of them were inclined to do so, you could get him up to 4,000 subs and it would be a real bonus. So maybe give it a thought. The link to his channel is in the description. So if you were inclined to give him a subscription,
tell them why. Why should they subscribe to you? What do you do? That's so
you've got some good interviews and people in the industry. I saw one yesterday.
Yeah, I've done 77 industry interviews to date. The last one was with Gail Ann Hurd, who produced some films people may have heard of, like The Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, the entire Walking Dead franchise. What I would say very quickly to people in chat is, if you're a fellow creative, like you're doing a comic book or something like that on Kickstarter, I would love to interview you. If you're a creative with a project, an independent creative like myself, you're making a low budget film, you're nearly finished, you know, maybe you need 5K to get to the end. If I can help you promote and push that project, if I think it's interesting, I would love you to come on my channel. So that's just a message out there to collaborate. My channel is about not just interviewing the big names in the industry, although of course they help. I want to interview the people that are just starting out, the people that need support, the people that need exposure. You are the Outcast Creative, hence the name, and I want to support you. And the bigger my channel gets, the more support I'll be able to give. That is what the channel is about, is supporting fellow creatives. So if you are one, get in touch with me via the Facebook page of the same name, and let's see what we can do.
Nice. That is, as far as pitches go, that is not bad.
Very good.
That's why I started it. That's what it's for. So,
no, I'm pretty sure we can get you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for that plug. That's very kind of you.
No, anytime. Hunter Dvorak says, last night I got to see Metal God's Judas Priest and the electrifying Sabaton. They are fucking brilliant live. Both crushed it. It warms me up to see metal genre be in its revival phase. Heavy metal supremacy. Indeed. Sabaton are superb when they're playing live.
Damn, Drinker, you've done it. It went over 4K in 30 seconds. So
hey, there we go.
Thanks,
10K
Jack.
next.
Really appreciate the support. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Yeah, I was going to ask as well, did you guys appreciate orc metal at the end of the latest Rings of Power episode?
My God.
As a fan of metal, get that out of Lord of the Rings, please.
Yeah.
That hit like a sack of potatoes. What the fuck was that?
The cringe was strong there, man.
Because the Acolytes did it. This did it. Like, I feel like there was a third thing as well, where the credits just like attack you. It's like, this is supposed to be the end. You're not supposed to be able to hurt me in the credits.
This is the second weird song they've done in Rings of Power this season, I think. It was one of the earlier episodes.
Yep.
3 or 4, I think it was around there.
Yeah, they did. I can't remember what they did that time, but yeah, it was another cringy effort. This one here from Moses, like, Drinker, just finished the deposition with open bar in the background. Couldn't hear anything, and my breakfast burrito is about to come out like jelly Sauron. Wish me luck. No. I'll watch later. Okay, man. I hope it plays out okay for you.
If you see jelly Sauron in your toilet or something, you might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Submit it as a script for season 3.
Pray for Mo right now. He's going to need it. Shan Wickram Singh says, P.S. forgot to say that Chris Gore said on his show that he's seen The Substance 3 times so far, and he must have really liked it.
3 times.
Seems to be a lot of love for that movie. Davy Jones, MauLer, EFAP TVs or an EFAP for the Penguin when? Will you discuss the Penguin?
I don't know. It's one of those ones that I don't know if it slots into the kind of thing that we do with the formats we have. Instead of like, we'll watch it more than likely. Certainly, me and Fringy will likely, if it stays as it is, we'll probably recommend it. But I don't know if there'll be any particular coverage of it, like breaking down scene by scene or anything.
I'll come on for that. I don't mind doing a long stream talking about something I like. So
we do those every
yeah,
once in a while.
I would have loved to have been on the Lord of the Rings trilogy with you. I would have loved that, and I've got loads of behind the scenes stories. So when you're doing something that I like, man, let me know. I'll be
sure.
Next one is Mr. Lucas says, "Hey Drinker, did you see AJ get sparked out? Is that Anthony Joshua when he was like fighting Dubois?" In which case, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of come to the end of his career, I think. He's getting a bit on in years, and it's probably time that he stops because the best is not yet to come, unfortunately. Spaceman says, "Hi lads, birthday today, so I thought I'd ask, what is your favorite Batman movie? Mine is The Batman or Under the Red Hood. Also, MauLer, what's your favorite Welsh actor?" I think we know.
Why would you even ask me that?
I know. There's only one.
Wait, not trying to sound mean. It's just
Morfydd Clark, isn't it? Come on, just
yeah. He's got a poster on this ceiling.
Just to make sure, in case
just a poster of her riding that horse with the terrifying smile.
In case they have no idea, it's definitely Anthony Hopkins. He's also like my favorite actor of all time. He's just a fucking amazing actor. But
he's amazing. Yeah.
What was the first question again?
I don't know.
Favorite Batman movie? I think it was
Batman movie. Oh. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if this is controversial, but it's Returns for me. I adore that movie.
First Tim Burton one for me.
Yeah, either of the Tim Burton ones I would take. I think.
Obviously, the Adam West movie's up there, of course. You know,
sure.
For kitsch value.
Snarky and Disparu, what's your favorite Batman movie?
Mine's Dark Knight. I could watch that movie forever. I don't think I'd ever get bored with it. I think it's awesome.
Forever.
I'm going with 2022, the Batman.
Just on repeat, as you'll have.
Yeah.
Did you like Pattinson as the Batman?
He's the love of my life. Yes, he just doesn't know it. Okay. I always
going to
say
kidnap him and make him know it.
No. My therapist said I can't do that anymore.
By the way, Rings of Power, Ron just said in the chat, has hit number 2 on the Nielsen rating. So, panel, we've done our job. Clearly, people were listening and they put it on to watch.
Well, how come we couldn't save Acolyte?
If we can get the Acolyte renewed and save Rings of Power, we are doing our jobs.
And Willow.
Yeah, Willow.
Willow needs to come back.
Willow needs 5 seasons at least.
I'm fighting for you, Warwick.
I still think it's fucking incredible. A show that literally it was so bad it got deleted from existence.
I like Warwick's tweet though. It's like every day people come up to me and complain that there's nowhere to watch Willow. And it was like, this is a horrific thing.
You just need him on the street corner handing out DVDs and a bootleg.
Like bootleg copies.
I could see that happening.
All for One says, "Open bar on my birthday. Awesome. I saw someone theorizing that Vic is cyborg because he's black and has the same name. The MCU and its consequences." Jesus. No, he's not. He's not cyborg, surely.
I think not. If you said that to the people who make that show, they would give you such a weird look. They'd be like, what?
What is cyborg?
They might punch you in the face, to be honest.
Yeah.
I get the impression from watching Penguin that they're not doing that. They're not doing they're not super interested in being like, oh, look at all these comic book references. Oh, you can expect this. They seem to want to make their own thing.
I think, yeah, Disparu, you might be the single biggest like repository of Willow knowledge on YouTube.
Probably, yeah. It's the only place you can watch it online anymore.
I was going to say suppository as well, but like that's quite appropriate for Willow.
I did genuinely consider getting Willow merch, and then I realized I'm probably the only one buying it, and I just ended up doxing myself. So that actually went through my head that I would be the only person buying it.
If they had a legitimate,
I reviewed everything.
If they had a limited release special edition with behind the scenes, would you buy it?
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Mate, I need to watch your reviews.
I do love the idea that your whole studio could just be like Willow merch in the background. Like,
well, when She-Hulk was out, I bought every single She-Hulk t-shirt I could find, and then just in one review swapped them without saying anything. It was just like literally went through the entire range.
You need a cardboard cutout of Warwick Davis. You need him in the background. You gotta
Just get the real Warwick.
Cheap,
I just need to like
small, I'd imagine.
pay him to come round for a day. And just stand in the background.
I
like
honestly
perfectly
think
still, everyone thinks he's a cutout, and then he moves.
I think at this point we could probably just get him on open bar just to talk about being in Willow. I think he'd be up for it.
Yeah, only halfway through open bar, he's like, "Wait, did you guys like it?"
Yeah.
Like,
Warwick, we want 10 more seasons, man.
That show was so bad. They literally had his best mate in it, who died because he could heal him with magic, but he was like, no, I can't use my magic because I need to save it up for the end. By the end, he's casting it on like training spells and blasting it all over the place. So they literally had him kill his best mate in the show for nothing. Like, this is savage.
TGV Monster says, Drinker and MauLer, if you could make a Terminator film, what would you make?
Oh, it's a big question.
See, I just today I reviewed Terminator Zero on my second channel, and I like that idea of branching it out into different places, seeing like what was going on Judgment Day, like in different parts of the world. Like maybe there was attempts to stop it, maybe there's other like Terminator like missions going on, all that sort of stuff. That's what I would do. I would branch it out into different areas, different characters, different setups, and try and like give different perspectives on this, because I'm so fucking sick of the Connors in LA, and that's just like every story.
If I'm feeling particularly crazy and I had a lot of time to prep, I wouldn't mind trying to answer the question of why John Connor's such a good leader, and so showing him binding everybody together. You know, like Salvation gave that a shot. I don't think they did it particularly well.
No.
So
I'd redo the third one, set it all in the future, and end up with Michael Bihn's character going back and bring the whole thing full circle, followed by the T-1000.
yeah,
Set
and
it all in the
try
future.
They were the biggest downside of Salvation was the fucking Marcus Wright.
there was a couple
So-
downsides, but that was one of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Like he was so unnecessary, and if you take him out the movie and just focus on like Kyle Reese and John Connor, like that's the thing that people actually care about in that film.
Well,
That
and
would've
if
made
you
it a
remember, John
stronger story.
Connor in that movie is having to fight to be respected and listened to because he's like the golden special time travel boy. That's how they treat him. They're like, oh yeah, you're supposed to be special in the future, right? And he's all this time travel bullshit. I would rather portray the story that he earned the respect. Everybody like knows him. He's a really good leader. He understands the Terminators better than anybody because he's been taught his whole life, that sort of thing. I would rather see that movie. And
How he caused the downfall of Skynet, you know, how he brought them down.
and you get.
I always wanted to have an encounter with Skynet itself, like to have someone converse with it and see what it actually like, what motivates it, like how did it reach the decision that humans need to be wiped out. Like I feel like that would be a fantastic way to culminate the entire series.
I can't remember which movie it was. Was it 3, where you see the time of when it just takes control, and they literally just like give it power, immediately nukes us. Like it didn't even need to think.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got the weapons, bye.
Yeah, I much preferred the original one in like from T2, where it's like, okay, they bring it online, and over the space of a couple of weeks, like it gets exponentially more intelligent, and like they're gradually starting to get more worried about it, and then shit, it's become self-aware. Shut it down, and then it's like, nope.
From Arnie in T2, I think, is actually much more kind of scary to listen to than watching it happen. It is really awkward with all the monitors. They press the button and they're like, things are going pretty well. Yeah, it's doing all kinds of great things. It's like, oh no, it's doing bad things.
Yeah.
Disparu is a present for you, mate. There you go. That's
Hey,
the
original.
vinyl soundtrack to the original movie.
I like they do the. He's like the original. Ugh.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like,
Oh, do you not like the original? Sorry.
Oh no, I think
He's all about the sequel.
What I like about this, I am very much something that hit the peak of so bad, and it was like it was so bad it's good, and it tried to be a comedy, which just made it even funnier. But the first line, I think it's the first line in the Willow series, just completely annihilates the entire movie. It's like, well, I went with Mad Mardigan. He was an arsehole. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
RRTNZ says, great to see the Outcast Creative back at the bar. Fascinating interview with Galen Hurd yesterday. If you ever get try to interview Chuck Norris, but be careful. He sends you the questions via roundhouse kick.
I have
there you
actually
go.
asked him to come on. I did write to him, by the way. So yeah,
That would truly be awesome.
I'll tell you more about that later.
If you can get Steven Seagal as well, that would be perfect.
Dual panel.
Yeah. Arkham Reaver says, once you catch up to the current year on your weekly facts, you should instead begin with one EFAP Ultimate Showdown style versus battle from this week's discussion. For example, Agatha versus Galadriel. I think we should definitely do that. I'd be up for that.
That's a good idea.
Let the panel debate. Blue Collar Loser says, I don't care. The ballerina trailer looks good. They tell her she will always be smaller and weaker. In a modern movie, the action looks on par with the Wick films. So yeah, this is our spin-off from John Wick, where it's Ana de Armas playing the ballerina. Have you seen the trailer? Any of you guys?
No.
Okay. Moving on.
It's like out of that movie, I wasn't particularly attached to the character in the first place, and we've already tried one spin-off for John Wick, which I don't think went down very well. So
yeah.
I don't think you can replicate it, and I think it's probably a bad idea now to be like, oh look, we've got a woman John Wick. It's like, even if it's good, you're immediately going off on the wrong foot with it, and you've got an uphill battle.
Yeah, I think Furiosa taught us that kind of thing just doesn't work by default.
I did see the trailer for that. Yeah, it might be good. I don't know. Let's wait and see.
I don't really
I
like
just
when I
think-
look at Ana de Armas. She doesn't scream action hero to me.
I think her fights were the worst thing about John Wick 4. I appreciated how they did it. They did a lot like she was fighting low to the ground, so she wasn't going toe-to-toe with muscles and stuff, which is probably the best way to do that kind of thing. But when it's John Wick, I like John Wick.
Yeah. Zeddy Boy says, will you guys be watching The Wild Robot? The trailer looks good. The animation looks gorgeous.
That looks good.
Yeah, Frankie said it was very good. Easy recommend, so I'm going to check it out at some point.
Iron Giant kind of vibes from that film. I think it'll be good.
Another one from Blue Collar Loser. Have to mention Lance's interview with Gail last night. My son gave a hello to the woman behind my childhood and The Walking Dead. It's a debt that I can't repay. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah, his son got to leave a message for Gail, so that was kind of nice.
Nice. And the ultimate question, Craig the Bad Guy says, who would win in a fight, the Scottish Unicorn or the Welsh Dragon?
Is
Wow,
MauLer the
dragons
Welsh
beat
dragon?
unicorns, don't they?
I feel like I can't even contribute to this one. I think the panel has to decide.
Yeah, I feel like I'm biased.
Well, if the unicorn can't fly, the dragon wins by default.
Unicorns have got wings or something, don't they? Or is that like a Pegasus?
No, that's a Pegasus.
No, but I think they're magical, so you might be able to
they've got
argue.
wings, okay, for the sake of this argument.
Technically, an alicorn would have wings. I had my little pony ruined for me when I was 12 by the bronies. So alicorns have horns and wings.
Okay. Glad you got the terminology down.
I think if I had to pick, I think the dragon would probably take it, because if you can fly and breathe fire, well, a unicorn's just going to get roasted, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it can basically just poke the dragon. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's a whole different movie.
All I'm saying is it's shite being Scottish, okay? We just lose it
soon on
everything.
Amazon.
And I'll do one more. Sam Wallace Art says, I love how Penguin is 2% action and 90% Oz failing persuasion checks. I think you've missed 8% there, but never mind. If the rest of the show is Oz and Sophia trying to out bullshit each other, then I'm hooked. Yeah, like there is a bit of like bluffing, and like I like the bit where he thinks he's like evaded his pursuers by hiding in the trunk of his car, and then he gets out and is like, there's just a dude right there waiting for him. Like, yeah, okay, you didn't outsmart them, but no, I like the fact as well that like Oz has to think on his feet sometimes when he gets busted doing something, and he's usually got some way to bullshit his way out of a situation, which I think is pretty impressive. It doesn't always work, but it shows that he's always thinking, which is nice to see in a character like that. So that's always good. But I'll probably finish there for the super chats anyway. Panel, I want to say thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes.
Appreciate you guys coming on.
Having me.
No, thank
It was a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite. Really appreciate the support for a small channel like mine. It says so much about you. So
No, it's cool, man. And I'm glad we got you over 4K. So good stuff.
4,130, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, pretty
Nice.
good. Thank you so much.
And for everyone else who's joined us for the super chats, very much appreciated. We will answer any ones that we've missed tonight on our catch up as we always do. And thank you to my mods for doing the usual awesome work that you always do, keeping things ticking over. But for now, today, that's all we've got. So go away now.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.